There we go. Should be all set. Sorry about that. Oh. All right. I know I was muted. I was talking to my wife. I know. I know. It was a private conversation. All right, well, here we are. So there is one person in particular who I expect should be joining today. And the only reason I say that is because he was very, very vocal about how he was going to join next time that there's a live stream. He's going to join, and he's going to prove me wrong because all of these stupid people, they can't do it. But yeah, so we'll see. I actually don't know what his username is supposed to be, but he is a tag artist. So I just want to go confirm so I can find his username in the comments on the YouTube video that he... And he was really, really adamant to, like, you know, not defend the guy that I was talking to, but this is really not the... I was debating with the Nazi, and he comes on and he's like, why doesn't Blitz ever debate smart people like Jay Dyer or Andrew Wilson? So, like, I don't know, we'll see if Kyle Teeter, if you're watching, we'll see if Kyle Teeter shows up. I kind of suspect he won't, though. And, like, look, that's not because I think that he's afraid, I just think that he doesn't know how to do that. Yeah, also lol at Andrew Wilson being smart and being able to defend his views. Good meme. Oh, I need to record what today is. Today is May 1st. You know, I released a video on, what was her name? The woman who, Amy Eskridge. I released a video on Amy Eskridge. I expected the video to do much better than it did, which is kind of a shame, but it is what it is. As entertaining as it might be platforming Nazis as oof. So I don't platform Nazis once I know they're Nazis, but this guy showed up, I had no idea who he was, and then he just started saying Nazi shit, and I kicked him off in 6 minutes. So, like, I don't know. As far as the people who platform Nazis, I don't know if you're critiquing the right person. From the Rabid Squirrel Sage with the $2, all hail the emissary of the lava lamp. No, you hail the lava lamp. And the emissary of the lava lamp leads by example. But I appreciate the bit. I appreciate the bit. Andrew Wilson would debate you on whether he would debate you on whether or not you called him smart. That's true. He would. And he still wouldn't be able to defend his view. The fact that you're on a live obsessing over the existence of God is evidence. The fact that you think that that's evidence is evidence against it. Been missing a competent science debate. Are you hosting one of those this week? I don't really host science debates. I don't host debates about, like, the merits of, you know, Einstein Cartan gravity, or, like, that's not a thing that I do. I don't know if that helps. But yeah, make sure to tap that screen. We can get more people in here. And we can have some conversations going on. It'll just take a sec. Wilson only ever seems to do the, oh, you don't believe in God, that means you don't have a foundation for logic, and he does it no matter what the subject is. Yeah, he does. Here's the thing, that's an assertion, and he's never able to defend it. So, I mean, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for Andrew Wilson and for Tigers in general. We can debate string theory versus loop quantum gravity. No, we can't, because I don't have strong feelings about either of them. All right, let's talk to opstop.gov.
What's up?
Opstop, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Why can't I hear you?
You can't hear me?
Oh, why can't I hear you?
Can you hear me? You
Sorry,
can't hear
I know
me at
that's
all?
coming through, but I can't hear him for some reason. It's on my end, not on yours. Don't worry about it. I'll fix it.
Oh, okay.
One moment.
What's...
Try again.
Try what again?
Talking. But we're good. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just my headphones were acting up. Give me 1 sec, will you?
Earbuds, but okay.
Okay, whatever you say.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so Opstop, you believe in God, I imagine.
Yeah.
Is there something that you could do to improve your audio quality? Because it seems kind of bad.
I can walk closer to my router.
I'm not sure if that's the kind of problem that we're having. I mean, I guess we can, I guess it's no issue.
Maybe now it's better?
It's not, but it's fine. So, Opstop, you believe in God. I don't. Why should I?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by God. I think it's pretty reasonable to believe in an uncaused cause.
An uncaused cause. I mean, there's a whole lot to cash out there. It's not clear what a cause even is. You and I can talk about causes within our universe when we have time and we have space, and we can talk about objects doing things to other objects and interacting with them. But it's not clear what an uncaused cause would be, especially if it's not something within our universe. That's not super clear. But suppose that I grant that there is an uncaused cause. Why would I think that thing is a being with a mind?
Okay, here's what I would. I mean, first of all, here's what I would start, right? You've heard of the infinite regress fallacy before, right?
Well, I've heard of infinite regresses. I haven't heard of this fallacy that you're referring to.
I mean, it's not really a fallacy. When people mention it and they talk about it, because they usually talk about it temporally, to mean that it's basically a philosophical Phil Bro way of saying if you just keep going back, when's the start, right?
Yeah, there isn't a start if you just keep going back, right?
Exactly, right? That's why I don't like the infinite regress fallacy argument, but something that's
not, I don't know.
Yeah. It's not a fallacy. It's not a fallacy, but people call it the infinite regress fallacy argument. Apologists will usually use that phraseology, okay?
Sure.
But what I'm saying is, forget the temporal aspect and just think about statically, the way you would build it up is if you look at your glasses right now, the cause temporally was you put them on, right? That's what caused them to be on your face.
Sure.
But statically right now, the reason they're sitting on your face is because they're being held up by your ears, right? That's not within the temporal plane. And the only reason your ears are being held up by your face is because of the molecular bonds. And you just keep going until you realize that
but
every single cause,
that doesn't seem like it's a cause.
From the actualization, it's borrowing from the. What do you mean?
It just seems like it's some sort of grounding relation.
It's a grounding relation.
Yeah, I mean, people. So people kind of distinguish between two types of causation. I don't really like to refer to the latter as causation, but so there's temporal, or there's what do they call it? Well, there's temporal causation, which is when you push on something and then it falls over. That's the temporal sense. And then there's this hierarchical causation, which is not really a cause. It's more of an order of which things are necessary for the following thing to be in the state that it's in.
What is the meaningful distinction between that and a cause? Something is actualized. Something has potential, and it's being actualized to be in the state that it's in right now.
Yeah. So,
without the temporal aspect.
The example I give is mathematical axioms. They ground mathematical objects and mathematical theorems, but I don't think that there's any reasonable way to say that the mathematical axioms cause something.
I don't. I feel looking at it like as if like the analogy to mathematical axioms doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about the necessary
these are-
conditions for something to be the case, right?
But it's not like I feel like mathematical axioms were really formalized in the last 200 years, even though we were carrying on with mathematics as B. But I'm saying that, for example, like if we take this relationship, this dependent structure all the way up, right? That constantly there is something that's true that is borrowing from the actualized potential of something at a higher hierarchy, right? Like
I don't know what an all of this business with like actualized potential and potential actualizations and like all of that stuff seems like super far removed from the way that we think about the world today. I don't think that there is any.
Is it far removed?
I don't think that there are any potencies. I think that there are states of affairs, and those states of affairs are related to other states of affairs.
I don't know if I agree with that, because it always, like, we can always see it in everything within the material world. Any state is an effect of a previous cause that's being actualized through
temporally. So temporally, I'm happy to agree with you that the way that we kind of like build a timeline of the world is we think of causes and effects in this temporal sense. But the states of affairs, it doesn't seem like that there's like some I don't know what potency is supposed to be if you think of the universe in like a four-dimensional way. Like if you think of the entirety of space-time rather than individual moments of time, I just don't know where potency lives.
It doesn't have to live in a material sense. Like if you have I don't understand, what do you mean? If you have a cup of coffee in your hand, the effect of it actually being in your hand, like that is only actualized because it can sit in your hand, right? Isn't it borrowing from the potential of your hand holding a cup of coffee?
What is it borrowing?
If you're holding a cup of coffee. Well, without your hand, it couldn't be suspended within the air.
Yeah,
right?
Counterfactually, absolutely. If the hand wasn't there, then the coffee wouldn't be there. But what is it borrowing?
Borrowing, like, I'm using it kind of like in a loose sense, but I'm saying it's only able to be suspended within the air because it's borrowing the potential from your hand to hold it up into the air. No?
It's borrowing the potential from the hand. Look,
yeah, the potential energy.
I don't think the potential is. Oh, wait, did you say potential energy?
Not potential energy. That's like I don't want to use like the physics term because it's not really true that you're borrowing potential energy. But the only way that this could actually happen is dependent on your hand, right?
Sure.
And I'm saying look at the dependent structure all the way up.
I mean,
so if you take your hand is only suspended with the cup of coffee due to your elbow being attached to your body.
Yeah,
and the only reason your body is like stable on the ground is because of the musculature within your back and your legs to hold you up and suspend you.
These are all.
And I just keep going.
These are all these are all temporal notions. Let's talk about
No, these are not temporal. No, that wasn't temporal.
I mean, they are. These are all things. These are all things that exist in space-time, right? So these are all relations that exist temporally. But
I'm saying the cause and effect of that isn't temporal. I could take a picture of you, have it static, and then describe exactly from cup of coffee to you standing.
Sure, and that's just an image of a temporal setting. But we can back up. We can back up all the way. Let's say that we descend all the way. You know, the cup of coffee is being suspended by my hand, which is being suspended by my body, which is being suspended by the ground, which is being suspended by Earth. And then what? What is Earth being suspended by?
I mean, you would probably fill in with some physics explanations, but I'm saying that like you would take this logic to its conclusion to say that there's probably something about the universe that is providing the actualization.
Hold on. So
that would be my intuition.
I did take the logic to its conclusion. I ended up that, you know, the coffee is ultimately dependent upon the Earth. And then what? What's the next step?
Yeah, this is like what's unsatisfying, I feel like, about the physicalist, materialist view of the world, because you always, like, I feel like physics always comes down to just describing what something is rather than like what is it? Like, I feel like we always break
those are the same question. What something is as opposed to what you said. What something is as opposed to what is it?
Sorry, what something does. What something does versus what is it? Yeah, what something does versus what is it? You know what I'm saying?
But walk me through this. So because I've heard this argument before. People talk about this hierarchical causation argument. They say, you know, the coffee cup is suspended by the hand, which is suspended by the body, which is suspended by the ground, which is by the floor, which is suspended by the earth. And what is the next step?
What I'm analogizing to the coffee cup is the actual universe. To say that it has to borrow some actualization from some other entity.
Why should I believe that? Why should I believe that?
Because it follows from everything we see.
Okay, what is the
Like,
actual
within the
what
worlds.
does the Earth borrow its actualization from?
Well, I'm gonna talk about the universe, I guess.
I'm
right?
talking about the Earth. So if what you're trying to do, you're trying to make an inductive case, right? You're trying to say that everything that we've experienced has to borrow its actualization from something else. So
Yeah.
what is the thing that the Earth borrows its actualization from?
In what sense? Sorry.
Whatever
like, why is
sense.
the Earth there?
Oh, I don't know. This is your argument.
Why is it being suspended in space?
Like
because like the balance of gravity from the other, I don't know, cosmological bodies.
So what? So
around it.
So you would say that the coffee cup is suspended. The coffee cup is being suspended because of the other gravitational bodies around the Earth? Because that's not true, right? Whether or not those other gravitational bodies were there, it's just not the case that the coffee cup couldn't be suspended.
Say it again. Sorry.
So the question is
no. I think that's false what you're saying right now, because not to get pedantic, but had there not been those other cosmological bodies suspending Earth in a particular orientation around the sun, would we even have life to begin with on Earth?
Well, that's a different question. The question is about the coffee cup being suspended.
I'm not saying it's I'm saying it's a necessary presupposition to the Earth actually existing.
But that's like
right?
that's temporal causation, right? That's temporal causation, not hierarchical.
It's not temporal. I'm saying in the moment, for Earth to be suspended in a particular region that allows for life, that allows for all these things to take place, right?
It's a different kind of causation. Look, use the picture analogy. You can take a picture of me holding a coffee cup, and you can establish that the coffee cup is being held up by me. If my hand wasn't there, the coffee cup wouldn't be there. Now take a snapshot of the Earth and be able to zoom in all the way to the coffee cup. What is the coffee cup being suspended by? How does the chain go back?
I mean, I'm not a physicist. I wouldn't know all the details, but if we start with you suspended on the ground, there's a gravity pulling you to the ground and your muscles suspending your back straight up in the other direction, right? So that's like you standing, right?
I mean, yeah. So me standing is suspending my hand, which is suspending the coffee cup, right. And then the ground is suspending me.
Right. Yeah.
And then the Earth is somehow suspending the ground. We could say that the core of the Earth or something is suspended the ground. And then what is the core of the Earth suspended by?
Why is it positionally the way it is?
No. So the
gravity.
Not asking why is it where it is, because you could turn off the influence from other planets, and you could still have an Earth suspending a coffee cup. There's no necessary.
Why can you have that? I don't understand.
It's a counterfactual, right? Imagine that imagine that the sun disappeared, that everything else in the universe disappeared except the Earth. You could still have the Earth suspending the ground, suspending me, suspending my hands, suspending the coffee cup, right?
No.
Why not?
I don't think. Why could you have that? What do you mean?
I mean, look. So the way that we can analyze this, that we can analyze whether there is this hierarchical causation or not, is do a counterfactual. So I'm holding the coffee cup, right? I don't have a coffee cup in here. Let's do a counterfactual. Snap your fingers, my hand disappears. Coffee cup's no longer suspended, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that means that my coffee cup is in a hierarchical relation.
I understand the argument. I'm tracking the conversation. Okay. Then it wouldn't depend on the other celestial bodies around the Earth, then.
Yeah. So then what is the Earth like? So is the Earth an uncaused cause in this sense?
Is the Earth an uncaused cause in that sense? No, I feel like there's a basic physical facts that allow the Earth to be stable as a stable force. Can we divide? It could be the case that the laws of physics that govern how the Earth form, or how the Earth stays the way it is, not temporally. I'm not saying how the Earth did.
Sure. No, I understand.
How it allows the Earth to maintain its shape and not be chaotic and have a bunch of particle dusts everywhere in space. Is that not what holds the Earth together?
It would, if you had, depending.
Is there not physical laws that hold the Earth together? The Earth depends on to hold it together. Not I don't want to anthropomorphize the Earth.
I'm saying
there's something that causes the Earth.
So that depends on your metaphysics of physical laws, right? I'm like a Humean, or at least close to a Humean as far as physical laws are concerned. So I take the view that physical laws are not governing. They don't have the property. They don't have the ability to govern, right? I take the view that physical states are certain ways. Those certain ways, the simplest way to describe those certain ways is in terms of, you know, these laws that we've written down.
So I'm sorry, say it one more time. What is the Humean view, that physical laws are certain ways?
Well, no, so I say I'm like close to a Humean, not quite, but the Humean view is that, you know, there are distinct states of affairs at different moments in time, and physical laws are merely a description of how those states of affairs are related to each other.
That's not the ground truth, so to speak.
Well,
like mathematics cannot fully describe the physical laws. That's the idea. It's
not that. It's that the physical laws don't have they don't have like some special property. They're just a description of the way the universe is, rather than some governing kind of rules.
Okay.
So whether or not
do you believe that material is foundational?
Do I believe that in some sense, but probably not in the way that you're thinking. I think that there probably is like some fundamental kind of stuff, whether that's like quantum fields or whether that's like some, you know, wave function, whatever it might be. Yeah, I think probably.
Okay, I don't want to go into like a whole idealist debate. I feel like I'm at an impasse with the hierarchical thing. I have to go read about it a bit more, just because like I feel like I'm gonna get like a steamrolled with the physics. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm gonna ask you, like, do you think that like if I could convince you out of this idea that like material itself is foundation, like quantum fields are foundational to the universe, would that lay credence to the idea of a creative power external to the universe, or no?
It doesn't seem like that's a dichotomy. So I guess what would happen is that every other option would have an increased credence, and if that's a live option, then of course the credence would increase. But this is not to say that like its credence would dominate over the other options, whatever they might be, right?
Yeah, it's just that I feel like a lot of people, especially who are scientists, they gravitate towards atheism and agnosticism, particularly because they have like this is not like an indictment of you guys at all, right?
How dare you? Go ahead. You're fine.
Yeah, it's just that it seems like they tend to gravitate towards explanations of reality that sit within the material world squarely, and then like it seems that like theism doesn't do that. But once you break past that barrier and you say like, okay, probably within reality, there are things that aren't material, like consciousness or whatever substance underlies material in and of itself that doesn't sit within the material world, that isn't grasped by mathematics and physics. Would that make you pause and say like, okay, perhaps, you know, maybe I'm not going to become like a Christian, but there's like a creative being, something with creative power externally?
So I'm a little perplexed by okay, let me back up. So suppose you're suggesting, I could be disillusioned of this idea that everything could be described with physics and mathematics and whatever. And that's a little bit perplexing to me, because like, as far as I'm concerned, mathematics is just a rigorous way of talking. It's just a rigorization of language. And so I can't imagine a world where I can't imagine any feature of reality that couldn't be described mathematically.
Well,
right?
I could probably.
Well, I mean, like, that'd be like saying that there's a feature of reality that can't be described. Well, I mean, like...
Described through mathematics, yeah, that's fair. Like, phenomenological properties cannot be described through mathematics.
Sorry, what kind of property?
Phenomenological?
I don't know what that means.
So, for like, the redness of red, so to speak.
I mean, like, you could absolutely come up with, like, a theory of color, like a mathematical theory of color.
You could, yeah, but that doesn't capture the experience of color. Like if I sat you in a room and you studied the physics of color your whole life, a dim room with no color red in there, and you read about how we encode color in different sort of ways, and you read about electromagnetism and all that stuff to learn
Mary's room, yeah,
and then you walk out and then you see the color red for the first time. That's not new information.
Well, look, I think that it's like a new experience. I think that, you know, learning is one kind of experience, reading is another kind of experience, gaining numerical data is a different kind of experience. But I don't know what information is conveyed by the experience.
I mean, to be fair, isn't it a consistent thing? Like the experience of seeing red is consistent across all red objects, right? There's probably a property that's contained within the redness of whatever red object that facilitates
property-
having consistent experience. No, you have the consistent experience of understanding and seeing red.
Yeah,
That
I
can't
agree.
just be because like you're so
But
what property
an experience,
that's not mapped out because of mathematics. You can't find that within mathematics.
an experience just seems like another way of learning about the world. It's like another mode of learning. But it's not clear to me that this is
experience isn't necessarily learning, right?
well, I mean, like not learning like in the sense that you do in school, but like learning in the sense that you now have another piece of memory that you can rely on to think about the world and so on, right?
Okay, yeah, sure.
So it just seems like there's a new piece of data that you get from having this experience, whereas before you had pieces of data about. Are you asking from the experience about like seeing color, like seeing red? What is the information about? The information is about where'd it go?
Yeah, I said yeah, like that.
So that new piece of data, that new piece of data would be about like the way that the photons reflected off of the apple interact with your brain.
No, it doesn't. No, what do you mean? Like just because you can map out specifically how within the visual cortex that we interpret the color red and how it's being processed, doesn't mean that you actually have gotten to.
Oh, where'd it go?
Spam calls, my bad.
You're good.
Just because you've mapped out how electrons hit our retina and then they travel to our visual cortex, doesn't necessarily mean that you've captured this concept of the experience of red, right? You could probably find that same process happening in apes or in animals that don't have the same perceptual capability of humans.
But okay,
right?
So there's two things. One, it's just not clear to me what the distinction is. Like, suppose that we had like a complete map of the brain, and we were able to look at the complete process of the cone in your eye flashing and then sending a neural signal all the way through your brain up until it reaches your cerebral cortex, and then it eventually fades off as the experience goes away. Suppose that we could map all of that out. It's just not clear to me that there is, in any sense, like something that you're missing, right? Whenever we do science, we have some sort of model, and then we attach an interpretation to what that model is talking about. So
yeah, and I'm saying particularly when it comes to science, right, there is a particular aspect that when it comes to stuff like consciousness, and I don't want to delve into specifically a consciousness debate. The whole point was that if you were disillusioned with just a purely material world, with lay credence to the idea of God, right? But since we're already on the topic, I'm just gonna say I don't think that you could purely there's certain characteristics that are so unique to consciousness, like this idea of a self-referential ID within the brain. Your brain, you don't see out of your brain, right? There's concepts that you can think of that isn't accessible to anyone else. I can't think of a physical process that's like that, right? An arrangement of matter.
But that's begging the question, right?
Why am I begging the question?
Because you're assuming that that's not a
suggesting it's not physical. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it is. But can you I don't think you. I don't.
Are you asking for other examples?
Yeah, if there's another example, sure.
So look, if the question is, are there other examples of a process that are not observable by a third person, then the only examples
observable by a single agent.
Yeah. So you're asking me to provide other physical examples of things that are not observable by a third person. Now, how on earth, even if there were other such things, how on earth would I provide you examples of things that are not that are external to me, that for which I am a third person?
I mean, we can infer, weakly at least, that animals have their own perception and their own. We can say
sure.
Consciousness. I can infer that you have your own consciousness, even though I don't have direct access to it.
You're asking for a different kind of thing, right?
Sure, but there's
an example of a different kind of thing.
Even another example where you could infer, based off of some behavior or process or effect within the physical world.
Look, the only reason I infer that you have consciousness is because you look like me and I have some internal experience, and I'm just gonna be like, well, it's probably reasonable to say that you have some sort of internal experience, right? That you have access. You have these first person physical things. Putting on my physicalist hat, you have these first person physical things that are not accessible to third persons. And then I can go look at apes and I'm like, well, apes are like kind of like me, and so like I can infer, and so like I could in principle say, okay, well, what about computers? Computers, they're not quite like me, but they're kind of like me. I could at least infer that there's something internal going on in there. And maybe the inference is, maybe you would say, oh, well, that inference isn't valid, and then I'd be like, okay, well, why is the inference to thinking that an insect has an internal experience? Why is that one valid? I don't know. I guess my concern here is that it seems like the way that I think about like studying the natural world, methodological naturalism or doing science, whatever you want to call it, is that you come up with some sort of model and then you interpret that model, the thing that model corresponds to, right, in the world. And so it seems like we can just say like, okay, we have this physical model of like we have this, I don't want to call it a physical model. We have like this mathematical or this conceptual model of like this thing that the brain is doing. And then we interpret the predictions, say, that model makes. We interpret those predictions as experiences.
Like that is also begging the question though, when you want to create a physical model to describe something fundamentally that you suspect may not even be physical, right? That's like the main critique of a Bayesian approach, is that you have to pick out your priors somewhat arbitrarily.
Yeah.
And here you said that it is physical, like the system we're trying to model is physical.
So to be clear, I'm not saying that this is like a proof or anything, but sure. Surely we grant that. Surely you grant that, like, if you had a complete map of the brain, you could, for every experience you have, you could find some unique brain configuration. Perhaps not. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Like that exists. And so all I would say is, okay, you build your conceptual model of the brain. And then now your interpretation of that model is that when the brain does when this conceptual model of the brain suggests that the brain is going to do XYZ thing for some given input, the interpretation of what your model's output is experience.
I wouldn't agree. Like, this is like a big thing. I'm a neuroscience student. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like, I have this conversation.
By the way, how often do you change your name? Because I feel like we've spoken like half a dozen times.
Twice.
Okay.
Sorry, but no, it's been off for a while.
You're fine.
I spoke to you like twice though, not like but yeah, sure. But I don't know. There's like this becomes like a thing of associationism, which is like a coined term in neuroscience, where people kind of associate an output of some physical model with experience or learning or perception. It even happens with the very biological focused neuroscience, where it's like we've learned about long-term potentiation, like how neurons kind of wire together the more they fire in sequence, right? That process is learning, is memory, right? That doesn't really seem like very satisfying to say that this process that we've uncovered, this biological system where neurons tend to potentialize, as in like they wire stronger together because they fire more often together. That seems like very unsatisfying to say that this itself is learning, right? Like, you're only speaking very deeply at an implementation level, but you can't speak to like algorithmically how this builds up to perception or learning, or, you know what I'm saying? Just because you can, like, it would be kind of like going into a computer and like seeing all the base parts and like telling me exactly what happens when you turn on the computer, what flips, which switches flip on, but not really explaining to me how the architecture works. That's like kind of how I would see it. Wait, I can't hear you. Hold on. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's my fault. It's my fault. I muted myself. So look, the reason why I'm like this associationism, is that what you called it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that seems like kind of the way that we talk about physical things when we're doing science, though. Like, and I'll just give you an example. We have, just touching on physics, because that's my area. We go and we measure that, like, if you put two masses next to each other, they get closer together, and when you drop things, they fall, and the planets, they move in certain ways. And we like build this, we build like this mathematical model. We call it, general relativity or Newton's laws, whatever it might be. And then we interpret that mathematical model to be like some kind of force, or, in the case of general relativity, we interpret it to be like the curvature of space-time. and that curvature of space-time has some sort of causal power, and like, but to say then that like, oh well, that's just begging the question that space-time is physical. Like, no, that's just what we mean when we say something is physical. We just mean that like there is some interpretation for the way these inputs and outputs correlate with each other based off of physically observable phenomena. Like, it just seems unsurprising.
Sure, but like you have to recognize the leap you're making when you're talking about things floating in space, and consciousness is way bigger. Like you're saying, like, I don't know anything about physics, honestly. I know a little bit, but like
you're fine.
Isn't gravity like isn't there like subatomic particles? I don't know, the Higgs boson or the gravitron or whatever, that like kind of like if you study these, the summation of these would kind of describe or be able to model gravity as we know it. Isn't that like
not as it stands, but that would be true if we were talking about electromagnetism. But look, so
like what I'm saying is that there's like multiple hierarchical levels where you can give a complete and holistic description of gravity. What you're saying, that's akin to looking at a very basic, like what I'm talking about, like learning and memory, like the long-term potentiation between neurons, right? It just causes them to wire together stronger. Like saying that is learning or memory seems like a way bigger leap than what you just described with gravity. You know what I mean?
I mean, look, so the way this conversation is going very much reminds me of like the way that like advanced flat earthers talk about gravity. They're like, what do you like? You know, how can you prove gravity is real? You can prove associations between matter. You can prove particles exist. But what do you mean space-time is a physical substance? And like it just sounds the same. And sure.
Let's be fair. Like you can like map out the whole brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can give me a full like synapse to synapse of a particular experience, right? But you can never describe the mechanism in which that like there's like this 3D object that we can all interact with that produces a 1D like interface that only one person has private access to.
What do you mean,
like
3D versus 1D?
Not 3D, 1D. I'm saying like third person versus first person. Yeah. I'm saying like even if you did have like a full map of the brain, you could not describe that particular mechanism. I don't think so.
What's the mechanism that needs to be described?
Like you're saying that you can look at a brain and you can see like the electricity, like you can measure like the signals across the brain and map it in particular to like different perceptions, right? Like seeing the color red, if you had a full model of the brain, you could say like this is exactly what happens in the brain and exactly like how emotion, quote unquote, is produced, right? And perhaps you can map out that dependent structure one-to-one. That's like super cool. But how would you describe the mechanism where only like there's a particular agent that has private access to that experience? Why can't I extract experience from that brain?
It seems like
interact with it.
So there's kind of two things. It seems like we're kind of saying that experience is this special thing, but it's not clear to me that it is. Yeah. It's not clear to me that it's any more special than like, you know, adding two numbers together, or you know, like in a calculator or something like this. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the reason why these things are first person is because we're talking about phenomena that happen to a brain, right? Or in a brain, about a brain. We're talking about phenomena that, you know, there's a brain and its stuff is happening in it, and the person doing the experience is the brain. So of course they're going to have a first-person view of it. It's a thing happening to the person.
That's a big jump. Like, of course they're going to have a first-person experience.
It just doesn't seem like that there's a. It doesn't seem like well. So that's what I'm taking a first-person.
This is what I mean when it comes to physics. Like, I feel like eventually you have to run into a field.
I was answering.
Sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
That's what I take first-person to be. When the event happens to you.
I don't like that feels kind of hand wavy. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, okay.
that is associationism in on display, where it's like the actual signals in the brain propagating across different pieces of neural mass I take that to be first-person experience. Like that's the leap that I find very uncomfortable, and that's what it's
But
like what you're talking about. It's not a
surely-
scientific answer you just gave me. That's like a very philosophical perspective that you have that is in line with your presuppositions or your priors.
Okay. So look, I'm not saying that I can prove this. I'm not saying that I have like the definitive proof, but surely there is not. Surely this is not so obviously false that we can just dismiss it and be like, materialism can't explain XYZ thing.
I mean,
right?
Even prior, like you said that you can only assume that I have experience just because I look like you and I'm having this conversation with you, right?
Yeah, well, I can't, map out your entire brain. And I'm also generally pretty agnostic about the whole stuff about mind-body relations and all of that stuff. That's why I put on my physicalist hat earlier.
Sure, yeah. But like you wouldn't concede that there's a different type of leap you're making when we're talking about gravity and gravitational bodies and this first person experience conversation. I feel like you can.
Okay, so I think that the important distinction is that, and yes, I absolutely, well, probably there is some sort of distinction, in the sense that I don't think that like gravitational systems have minds. So I don't think that there is anything that it is like to be, gravitationally bound together, right? I don't think that there is such a thing where it's like it to be that way. But if it were the case that gravitationally bound systems had minds, like maybe, I don't know, maybe you're a panpsychist or whatever, then that would be a first-person experience I don't have access to. All I could do is describe it, right? And so, like, yes, I agree.
I don't think it'll be the panpsychist view. Not to be pedantic, but I feel like just because like everything is constituted through consciousness, this doesn't mean that like this complex would have a first-person experience, right? It would just be that gravity is an excitation of a consciousness field, right? Not necessarily.
Wait, hold on. I think that's the idealist view. Isn't the panpsychist view that like everything has consciousness?
Everything is made of the most basic unit of consciousness, like the constitution. Like everything is constituted of base unit, like
and those things have and anything with consciousness has a first person experience, presumably.
I don't know that much about panpsychism. I guess sure. Okay, so I'll move forward.
Whatever it is, maybe it's pan-conscious, whatever it's called. Like you can imagine that there is some way that it is to be gravitationally bound up and whatever. I don't know what that is, but it's like, if it's true that every system, every subsystem has a conscious experience, then that would be a first-person experience I don't have access to. But it wouldn't mean that it seems like then I would be stuck saying like, oh, well, that means that gravity can't be described physically. So, like, yes, I agree that there is a leap.
That you can't have that wouldn't just because like your first-person experience isn't accessible to me doesn't mean that like in a court of law your behavior can't be mapped out and spoken about rigorously, right? I just can't have access to your own experience of your behavior. Similarly, that physical system, maybe I can't have access to its own conscious experience of being gravity and moving bodies around, right? But I can observe like a scientist and study the effects in the physical material world.
Would you then say that in this hypothetical, would you then say that physics cannot completely describe gravity because we cannot describe the experience of being gravitationally bound?
I think we're just borrowing from the fact that experience itself is not a physical thing. Like when you're saying that we can't describe gravity, well, gravity is the thing that we prescribe to the physical effect that bodies take on in space-time, right? The experience of such is it falls within the other category. And we say that that is fundamentally something that we can't reach through physics. It's a phenomenological property that we can't reach through the language of mathematics and physics.
So the reason why I bring this up is because if it were the case that gravity could be experienced by gravitationally bound things, whatever that might mean. If that was the case, then it seems like that we would have to make the claim that, well, if gravity is this thing that can be experienced, right? Then we cannot fully capture gravity using physics in the same way that because we can experience color, we cannot fully capture color using neuroscience, biology, physics, whatever.
I still think it would be the experience of something, but I could grant that, sure, yeah.
And so the only leap that I think that I'm making when I compare describing gravity, you know, and like trying to reify space-time or whatever, the only leap that I can see between that and associating brain states with experience is that when we're talking about physics, we're just talking about things that you and I don't think have experiences. And when we're talking about neuroscience, we're talking about things that you and I do think have experiences. And so the only leap is just that, you know, we don't think that, you know, two stars orbiting each other has the experience of two stars orbiting each other, but a brain does have the experience of having go ahead.
It's a very consequential leap, though, because in one sense, like the leap where we do suspect there to be a conscious experience, right? Like in some views, we're talking about something that is fundamentally immaterial that we can observe from an external perspective, right? That's like a way different than observing a physical system, no?
Well, okay,
so, like,
so
we're saying we're observing the effect of something that is fundamentally immaterial. That's like the implications of that are a bit bigger, I would say.
To say that it's fundamentally immaterial begs the question, right?
No, maybe not fundamentally immaterial, but it like the actual effects and like the effects that we see in the material world are downstream of some immaterial process.
Again, that's begging the question.
If we were to assume that consciousness is not material.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. So, and I mean,
that's keeping with the analogy. If the gravitational bodies also had an immaterial experience of being gravitational bodies.
Yeah. So I guess my intuition would be that, like, okay, suppose that the gravitationally bound whatever does have an experience. My intuition would be like, okay, well, we can still fully describe gravity. There's just no issue there. It's just like there is some there are two different ways to look at gravity. There's like the internal way and the external way, and they're both talking about the same thing.
Okay.
At least that's what my intuition is.
The point you're making. Okay. I'd have to. Okay.
And it's something to think about. But I'm going to let you go because you've been on for 40 minutes and we have 8.
Yeah, let me just ask you one more thing.
Sure,
Like,
go ahead.
Like, I feel like we went on a tangent when the whole consciousness thing.
We did.
But like, my point was that like, if I could like disgruntle you enough to say that, okay, let me like switch over to this idealist, panpsychist, whatever bullshit, right? Like how does that reverberate across the rest of your worldview when it comes to theism, I guess? And I'm not talking about like the Abrahamic God.
I know.
Okay.
So I don't think it would get me there. And the only reason I say that is because like I already loosely play with like ideas like Platonism. I'm not sold on them. In fact, I'm very much sold against them. But like the idea of the immaterial is, you know, I wear a mathematician's hat half the time. And so the idea of like the immaterial having like some sort of like abstract existence, that doesn't bother me so much. And I don't think that would therefore imply that there is some creative agent responsible for reality. I mean, of course, if you reject materialism, then the credence of everything else goes up. And theism would be an example of that. But it's just not clear that like it's the same as the other thing that we talked about. Like, yeah, of course the credence would go up for every other view that's not rejected. But I'm not sure if it would, like, there would need to be some more arguments. I guess what I'm saying is I could grant like panpsychism or like idealism or something like this, and then I don't know how you then go to God.
Yeah, I guess that's like the thing though, like it's kind of what I wanted to, like that's like what I wanted to get out of you. I was wondering from just like your opinion on that, just because I feel like it's even now, like even though you're saying it wouldn't get you there, I just find it really interesting that people who are atheists become more warm to the idea once they succumb to the idea of the immaterial, which I feel like it has almost no relation. Just that, like, most notions of God are immaterial. So if you think that there is something immaterial, then like
that's it. That's
very,
it. Right.
Like, basic. Yeah. That's the only thing, basically, right? Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah. And for what it's worth, I was gonna say something and I don't remember what it was. So I think that there are views that you can hold, that are reasonable, but you know what? Never mind. It was going to go off on a tangent.
I'm gonna go far, but it's fine. I understand. I'm gonna upgrade and come back.
All right.
I'm gonna upgrade my philosophical bro stuff.
All right.
Come back.
All right. Take care, bud. Bye-bye. We've spoken before, but he's like, it's always like a fruitful conversation. And like, he is a Phil bro, but doesn't seem like the bad kind of Phil bro that's like really obnoxious. Oh, all right, so we have some super chats, and then we'll bring up our next guest. All right, from Miko Makapo with the £2. It's turtles all the way down, young man. Well, it might be. Wow, I'm 32 and that just happened. Eat Some Shorts just sent 10 Dr. Blitz Debunks gift memberships, which is huge, because that's the kind of regular income that helps me get to stability, which is really, really helpful when you're doing this full time, because, you know, if you're relying on cash apps or donations or videos doing well, that can be really unreliable. So the super chat or the gift memberships are super, super helpful. And because of that, there's a few perks that I've added. So now those people who got the super chats, or sorry, not the super chats, the memberships on YouTube now have access to emojis. They have access to my debate notes. They have access to the super fan members only Ask a Physicist live streams. So thank you so much, Eat Some Shorts, and let's get a big round of applause for him. Bunch of W's in the chat is what people say these days. From Ekipo with the €5, I disagree. Experience of red and green are very close experience for me. Well, yeah, sure, but that's just because you're red-green colorblind. From the Very Hungry Singularity with the $10, I can't take someone seriously when they can't figure out how to change a smoke detector battery. This seems to be like I don't know if it's like a. Well, okay, so it's apparently, and this is what I've heard, it's especially popular in like Black households, and like so to like hate on this is actually kind of racist, as far as I know. Like it's some people just like, it's just not a, like, they're just used to it, and so if you're not used to it, then it's gonna bother you, but just, you know, grow up, deal with it. At least that's what I've been told. I don't know, like. But, you know, I wouldn't discount someone just because you're hearing a smoke detector alarm. Okay. From Grimmy with the $5, I beg your guests to look into electrochemistry in the brain. Well, he's a neuroscientist, so I imagine that, or at least he's studying neuroscience, so I imagine that he's going to. Yeah, it's a stereotype, right? So, like, I would just say, like, just because somebody has a smoke detector battery alarm going off, don't, like, discount them, okay? Like, that doesn't mean that they're unintelligent, right? It just means that they grew up used to it, and so they just don't even think about it, right? And from AI-induced apologist with the $2, succumb to the immaterial realm is wild. Yes, that's what happens when you die, apparently. All right, let us bring up our next guest. I just want to check to make sure that Kyle is in the... Okay, so Kyle Teeter is not in the chat. Which is unfortunate, because Kyle Teeter is the hater who is like, I'm gonna come up and destroy you, but he won't. So we'll see, I guess. I think his name was Kyle. Is it Kyle? Yeah, it's Kyle Teeter. If Kyle Teeter is in the guest box, feel free to let me know and I'll bring you up. But until then, keep running, I guess. All right, let's bring up our next guest from TikTok. Potassium deficiency. Probably should get that checked, by the way. Potassium deficiency.
Hello. Right, before you kick me out for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the point? Like, I'm not gonna like try and change your beliefs and all that. I don't believe in God before you kick me out.
So
right?
the reason why the point is that it's interesting and it's fun. That's the point.
Oh, so sorry, I just thought like you were just trying to completely change people's beliefs and stuff.
No,
you know?
I mean, the background says, can you convince me to believe in your God? Right.
Oh, so I just thought you were just beefing people because.
Nope.
Oh, all right.
All right, let's talk to the Lamb Apologetics. The Lamb Apologetics. The Lamb, how's it going?
It's doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. The Lamb Apologetics, I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that you are Hindu.
That's a good guess, but no.
Ah, rats. Well, okay, so second guess was Christian. Am I right about that?
Yeah. We're not all Vishnu, unfortunately, I guess.
Unfortunately. So, should I call you Lamb? Is there something else you'd want me to call you?
You can call me Lamb. It's fine.
All right, Lamb. So I'm not a Christian. You are. Why should I be a Christian?
Well, first, I think like I did hear you say something about like Philbroing, and I just want to make sure because I know you want fruitful, conducive conversations. So, I don't know if you find like continental Husserlian or Heidegger philosophy to be something that
I
would
find
be
it
interesting to you.
I find it completely impenetrable. I can't make sense of continental philosophy to save my life.
Okay, yeah, because like it's just one of those things. I know you just got done with the discussion actually about experience, but it mostly deals with like the phenomenological understanding of reality so far as it deals with like
Sure.
How your experience is going to ground intentional structures. So basically, like how your conscious perceives things and how they unfold to you in any given way.
Right, but what would this have to do with God?
It's just an explanation on how like experience reality that's going to be disclosed through some form of phenomenological motion is going to be a type of system that pertains to an uncaused cause, basically. Like it's like the argument from motion, but a lot more like continental.
Suppose I grant an uncaused cause. Why should I think that uncaused cause has a mind, and why should I think that that uncaused cause has a mind and is the father of Jesus?
Okay. Yeah, so basically in the realms of the phenomenological domain, causality is more likely going to be relegated to some sort of like intentional structure.
Causality? How do you... maybe I'm just confused because continental philosophy is confusing, but like, you know, when an asteroid crashes into Jupiter, there's some cause-effect relationship between, you know, the sun's gravity and, you know, the sun's gravity tugs on the thing, and there doesn't seem like there's any intention there. It just seems like a thing that just happens naturally.
Yeah, so intention, and again, this is where it gets into the confusing. Intentionality in phenomenology does not mean whatever you're thinking. And that's par for the course for explaining it. Intentionality is going to be there's like an unfolding of an experience given a conscious awareness of such, right? And so like intentionality.
Well, so I just reject this idea that we need a conscious awareness of like the meteor crashing into Jupiter in order for it to happen. That seems silly.
That's fine. That's not what it's really dealing with. So what it's dealing with, at least for what I'm trying to explicate upon, is like causality so far as there's going to be a specific agent in which is going to be involved for like this sort of intentional structures unfolding. So for example, like event A followed by like event B in some sequential sense is not like what the phenomenological account really like registers.
So then what do you mean by cause?
We would say there's like an apprehension of event B bringing out the aboutness of B, and event B like arises from A.
The event B, that sounds like it's the same thing as saying event A happens and then as a consequence event B happens.
Not in the same sense, because like when we talk about aboutness and arising in phenomenology, it's going to be more distinct.
Why is aboutness involved with causation?
Here, what I'm talking about with causation isn't about like physical constraints. That's not what the argument really pertains to per se.
So then, what do you mean by an uncaused cause then? Because typically, an uncaused cause, at least as far as I understand it, with the argument for motion and all of this, is more akin to like this kind of physical causation, perhaps, or like at least hierarchical causation, maybe like some sort of sustenance or foundational or hierarchical causation. And none of those ideas seem to gel with what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, one, I do have a set of metaphysical background commitments, specifically like Husserlian transcendental idealism would be one of the things I sort of register with per se. But like, I guess like I could give you like the argumentative structure for what I mean when I'm trying to explain like how the intentional structures are going to be relegated to an understanding of reality so far as phenomenological motion is going to be concerned with.
So rather than do that, I mean, not to say that we shouldn't do that, but rather than do that, would you say that given my understanding of what causation is and given my understanding of, you know, the reason things happen, at least in the world that we experience, would you say that with those priors, would you say that it is impossible to correctly come to the conclusion that God is real and that Jesus died for our sins and all this stuff? Or at least unreasonable.
No, it's not unreasonable. If you mean like causation, as in there's some sort of like physical constitution within like some sequential understanding of temporality, maybe. But like, I still think that's like reasonable. Like, for example, people come up with like the Kalam argument or specific nomological harmony arguments and things like that, which are going to be more in the realm of those physical constitutes. But
the reason I ask is because it is a significantly tougher order to convince somebody to completely change their priors. If you want, like, if your goal is to convince me to believe in God, which, you know, presumably it's what the background says, right? Then you would have a much easier time leaning into my priors, or at least the way that I think about the world, or at least priors that are, or at least priors that are close to the way that I think about the world, rather than asking me to accept a completely new worldview with a completely new set of priors that relies on a completely different kind of thought process that I'm unfamiliar with and unconvinced by.
Okay. Yeah, if it's going to lean more into, and I'm not saying you're doing this specifically, but if it's going to lean more into like you have like an unintentional appeal to incredulity because you're like unaware of specific continental philosophy, I mean, that'll be fine. I think that's reasonable.
Well, look,
right?
I mean, like I've heard a lot of continental philosophy, and it just sounds like gibberish to me. Like the whole time, like, and you know, maybe I'm just like. Maybe I'm just like smooth brained and I just don't understand it, and all of the giga chads with their enormous like mega brains can understand the continental philosophy, and I'm just like a simple mathematician, but like it just sounds like gibberish. It sounds like we're not conveying meaning.
As long as you're not reading like Hegelian work and lumping like like me into that, I would understand that. Hegelian's kind of like a schizophrenic, but yeah, I understand. I think this is specifically my realm of expertise. So if it's not going to be conducive, I completely understand, and I'll just bow out. But you know,
it's just one of these things where like it sounds like in order to convince me of your worldview, you're going to have to first give me a semester or two on the kind of thing that you're trying to explain. And that seems like that's unlikely to be successful. Just like objectively, it's unlikely to be successful, right? Just because there's a lot of work that has to go into it. Whereas I already have like very, very strong reasons why I think that Christianity specifically is false. So it seems like you could build up all of this machinery to get to continental philosophy and, you know, talk all about like the uncaused causer in the sense they're referring to, and then I would still think that Christianity is false. So,
okay. I mean, the only thing I can think of is if there are specific understandings of Christianity you think are going to be false that we could speak about. But
yeah, I mean, I could just give you an example. So this is something that's been bothering me lately. Is like if Christianity is true, if Jesus is God, right? It seems like Jesus shouldn't have any false beliefs. And you know, if you just like read various passages in the Bible, it's pretty clear that Jesus did believe that Noah's flood actually happened. And I have incredibly strong reason to think that that's just not the case.
It depends. Do you believe that belief is going to be strictly oriented towards a global flood and not a local one? Like, for example, someone like John Walton or Wright might say that ancient Israelites would have believed in more than likely.
Well, so there's a particular verse, and I really should have written this down. It might be, is it Matthew 24:37? It might be. Let me see if it's this one. So this isn't the one I was thinking of. I think the one I was thinking of was in Luke, but I think that that's a direct copy of this one. So it's, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until that day that Noah entered into the ark. And I knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So it doesn't seem like this is just like, Jesus is not thinking of this in like terms of just like a local flood that was just like, you know, like locally devastating. It seemed like that this is referring to like the whole world.
No, I think it does seem sort of in line with like Walton's sort of understanding and dissertation towards like the explanation of the flood as it would be understood by like ancient Near Eastern civilization. Like just the utilization of the word all doesn't always encompass a strict meaning. For example, like we look at like certain conquests, not to get into like the moral conundrums with like the conquest in the Old Testament, but a lot of the issues with a lot of the moral understandings of that are also predicated on how you understand words like all or everyone. For example, if you look at some of Walton's work, and I don't know if Joe Corico has some work on this as well, but it talks about like certain usages of those phrases are not strictly delegated to being like hyper literal.
Well,
like it does seem.
But so what's being done here is this is drawing an analogy between what the end of times will be like, the end of days, right? Like when Jesus returns, and Noah's flood. And so unless the implication is that like, oh well, like it seems like that an analogy wouldn't be drawn if it were the case that Noah's flood was just some like local thing, because the end of days is supposed to be the whole world, right?
The whole world, but I don't believe that analogy directed would specifically make it the whole world in the same sense as the global in terms of what he's trying to refer to the end times. Like, let me go actually read that first. You said it's sure. Matthew 24:37.
I found the one that I was thinking of. It's Luke 17:26. But Luke 17:26 is basically grabbing from Matthew, I think. I mean, they're basically identical, the verses, and I can pull them up if that helps.
Yeah. Let's see. 26. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's days, as it was in the days of Noah. So shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. Yeah, I think this is an emphasis on a judgment.
Right, but if the flood was local, then it wasn't like some big judgment where God is wiping out, all of the evildoers, right?
It wouldn't be out of line with what like someone like Walton might say, because
is it your view then that like Jesus would have not believed that there was a global flood?
Yeah, I hold to local flood theory.
Well, I mean, you can believe that that's true, but you don't think that you don't think that the ancient Hebrews and then also Jesus believed that it was global?
No.
So I mean,
like I take a view, like I take pretty much Walton's view entirely of Genesis. So I take more of like allegorical functional applications of like Genesis in terms of like how the creation days are structured. I take more of the ancient Near Eastern understanding of like numerical applications, as well as what the symbolism would be. Like, for example, I don't think the patristic ages or the patriarch ages, my fault, are like literally 900 years old, right? And this is more in line with like someone like Walton would explain. And I think that
what do you make of like what do you make of like Adam and Eve? Do you think that Adam and Eve actually existed as like the original two humans?
Yes, and there's two cents. I actually had a conversation with another Christian about this today. So because I'm a theistic evolutionist, so I do believe that evolution, more primarily in the structuralist, not like a neo-Darwinian or regular Darwinian sense, but like I take like the view that what it means to be human in the Christian is going to be the ensoulment. So then there's going to be like a rational soul that's applicable. So whether God created Adam and Eve and then put a soul into them, in which they are now unique and become the representatives, or if God put souls into some sort of creatures that are going to be like ancestral common, and they ontologically change. I'm more agnostic on that, but I do believe that Adam and Eve existed literally, but I take evolution to be true. So
I mean, I take it that Jesus probably believed the Garden of Eden story as well. And so, like, look, the reason, what I'm getting at, and this is just like a broad, I just bring up the Noah one because it's particularly explicit, but it seems like Jesus, being a first century Jew, almost certainly believed the things that were in the Hebrew Bible, right? And, for a lot of these things, we can just go find direct quotes that are in the New Testament, right? And it's just a lot of the things in the Hebrew Bible, we just have very good reason to think didn't happen. And so it seems like that there has to be something going on there. Why is it that there was this man who is supposed to have been the Son of God, but we at least have reason to think that he believed these things that are, at least we have reason to think, false?
Yeah,
that seems a little bit problematic. And I mean, like, maybe you can wiggle your way out, but it just seems like that at that point, what we're trying to do is we just need to look at the evidence as to what these people believed. And I haven't read Walton's work. I haven't heard of this, so like I'd have to take a look at that. But
yeah, because I don't like when you say wiggle out, like I would say that sounds slightly, it seems slightly petulant, at least when it seems like when you are assuming a specific paradigm of how these texts are going to be understood, especially when I'm portraying Walton's view. And like you said, you haven't read Walton, so I can't like put any sort of like issues towards you per se. But
so could you perhaps just summarize why it is that you think that Jesus, why it is you think that, or why is it that Walton thinks that even the ancient Hebrews didn't think that there was a global flood, but rather that it was a local flood?
Yeah, I can try to summarize it. Walton looks at a collection of different texts throughout the what would be that time, and what he looks at is specifically writing patterns, how the language is going to be interpreted, and then what the cultures at the time may have thought of this thing. I have physical notes somewhere I took on it, specifically about the patriarch age and the 7-day creation. But what he says is that like the way they talk is always going to be functionally applicable, not something that's literal. So whenever they, even if it seems like directly literal in the sense of how they apply these words, it's almost never understood that way. Let me see if I can actually grab a notebook behind me, because he brings it up in one of these books. I'm trying to find if he's got one on the flood per se. I don't know if I have one on the flood on hand. I just have the stuff that he talks about with Genesis. Like I think it still explains the same sort of realm of reasoning he has, right? Like he looks at works. I'm going to butcher like every single epic of Atreus. Yeah, I don't know what these. Arian Car 4. Oops, drop my mic. The Numa Eilish. Yeah, so he's looking at works like these, for example, and he notes, and same with Michael Heiser's who I forgot. They look at these and they actually look at specific points within the writing, and then they compare it to the scripture, and they say, well, these sort of literary techniques and the way that these like applications of language seems to be pretty much synonymous.
Well,
they're
I would absolutely agree that like the kinds of things that are discussed in the kinds of language, the kind of storytelling that's done in Genesis is very, very similar to like Babylonian and Sumerian storytelling. I mean, if you look at like there's like the Babylon or the Sumerian king list, which has kings ruling for 40,000 years, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't. So I agree that this was like a style of thing that people wrote at the time, but it seems like that's not the same as saying that they didn't literally believe that this was true. In fact, I think it's more plausible that they literally believed that there were kings, ancient and primordial kings that ruled for tens of thousands of years. That seems plausible. They believed a lot of very crazy things, what we would call crazy anyway.
I'm trying to understand what increases that prior. Is it just because there's other things, like for example, like
believing in the supernatural was very ordinary at the time?
Yeah, I say for the sake of argument though, that kind of assumes a specific metaethical background that is pretty much in contention.
Do you think that believing in the supernatural was not ordinary?
No, but when you're applying like they believe in the supernatural and it's ordinary at the time, it seems like you're lumping that in with they believed in crazy things that we know are like.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, I was being a little uncharitable there, but like clearly, like there are things that they believed in. Like, the ancient Greeks perhaps believed that like the Hydra existed, right, and was slain in the primordial times by the son of a king or the son of a god, or like there are these things that you and I would call like fantasy, right? But believing in these things was ordinary.
Okay. Trying to look at his I got his books on hand. Lost World of Adam and Eve. I don't think that's the one. Now let's see. Okay, so it does seem like from these books, specifically, I think the Lost World of the Torah and the Lost World of Genesis, um, he seems to understand the flood as more of like a cosmic decreation or like undoing creation.
Mm-hmm.
Especially,
But
yeah, in the book.
that seems very global, not local. Right? If it's
No,
cosmic.
he's saying no. Cosmic just means that the understanding of how this sort of judgment is applicable is going to be applied to all humanity, but it's not like transferring to a
all
literal
humanity.
physical.
So,
Yeah.
so all of humanity was judged during the flood?
No, I'm just saying like whatever sort of understanding he had of the sort of judgment, right? There's going to be more of like a spiritual understanding to like how this judgment is going to be applicable. For example, like when people point to Exodus and they say like in Exodus, God seems to judge like children and generations for like the sins of their father, right? And then if you read a lot of the ancient understanding as well as the context behind it, then you find like, well, the judgment is going to be predicated on household covenants and representations of idol worship as it pertains to the familial cultural sense, rather than them literally judging like an unborn child 5 generations from being born, right? And so that's just how like the Old Testament reads. Is a lot of these things aren't necessarily like hyper literal.
I mean, so I agree that they shouldn't be read literally. I don't think that that's an accounting of what was actually believed. And like we could go like if you want other sources for like for like what the ancient Hebrews or the ancient Jews believed, you can go look at like the Talmud and their discussions about the flood, and they're arguing about whether or not Israel being the only pure place, like the land of Israel, right, not like the nation state, whether or not like the land of Israel being the only purified land was covered or not by the flood. So one rabbi says it was all covered, including the land of Israel, and another rabbi is like, oh no, the land of Israel was the only place where the flood wasn't. And so like this seems to indicate that at least the rabbis at the time, and this is written within a century or two, either to the past or to the future of Jesus, this is written by Jews, right? So like it just seems like that. It seems like we at least have historical reason to think that ancient Jews thought that this was plausibly global.
I don't know, because then you got stuff like the Hebrew words, for example, like eretz, which is going to be used. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly at all, but like used for like earth or land is going to be more conducive as understanding regions or the known world, right? And so if you try to say like, well, all the earth, that's going to be more of like a human perspective rather than what the word seems to imply in its functional sense, which is either what the people writing would have known at the time of the regions, or it's just a specification of the region that pertains to Noah and whatever people were around during Noah's time on that region.
How long ago do you take Noah to have lived?
I don't know, whatever the average age at that time was. I don't take the patriarch.
No, not the age. How long ago?
Oh, how long ago?
Yeah.
I'm unsure on that because I believe the Earth is 3 or 7 billion?
4.5 or so.
4.5. Yeah, I do take that to be true. So my exact placement of where he lived is not going to be something that I think is good, or like I'd be more agnostic.
Yeah, I mean because like this is one of those things where it seems like that that it's not even clear if we have any evidence of a local flood that happened in the last, say, 5,000 years in the area. Apparently Noah landed in Mount Ararat. I don't know if you take that literally too, but that's located in Turkey. The wood would have all rotted away, so we wouldn't see that now if that existed, if that did happen. But, so it must have flooded all the way up to Ararat, right? And that's pretty far from the land of Israel, which, there was debate about whether the land of Israel flooded. So we're talking about this would have been a flood that covered like the entirety of the Middle East. And that seems really far-fetched too, even if we grant that it's local. And why didn't it spill over into Egypt? They were connected by land, but Egypt records no such thing.
I'd have to look more into that because Walton's view is going to be a little bit weird because I'm actually unsure if he takes it more like purely allegorical, Because, for example, again, in the book, the Genesis 1 book he has, when he talks about the flood stories, he actually compares them to the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? And he actually says like the ancient cultural framework has a bunch of parallels in it, such as like the divine decisions, destroy humanity, chosen survivors, a gigantic boat, preservation of animals and creatures and things. And he kind of just comes to like some sort of conclusion that this cultural framework that seems to be shared amongst its textual application is reshaped to just sort of teach Israel's theology about God.
But they thought it actually happened. That's like I can agree. Like my view is that yes, like the Epic of Gilgamesh predates the Hebrew Bible by a very, very long time. So I suspect that the story, the flood story in Genesis comes from kind of cultural diffusion from the same region where the Epic of Gilgamesh was written down, was talked about, etc., told, all of those things. That doesn't mean that they didn't think that it actually happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my take, like it seems. At least looking at the Talmud passage, this is Zevachim 113a, like they are arguing about whether the flood happened in a particular place. They're arguing about whether the flood happened in the land of Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, right? So they're not interpreting this as like an allegorical thing. They're like, okay, this happened. Did it hit this particular strip of land or not?
Yeah. I would take that there's definitely an understanding amongst them that they would view this flood to have happened. I'd have to look and see if there's any archaeological evidence to either support or deny it. If there's no archaeological evidence to deny it, then I'm going to be a little bit more agnostic or withhold judgment on those sorts of things, as it doesn't pertain to me to find it worth of any value, right? Because what it's going to assume is like a sort of an argument from silence where, well, we don't have any archaeological evidence to prove that a flood of this magnitude in a local sense did happen. Therefore, if it's not fitting that criteria, then it's not going to be something that's true. And I don't believe that criteria is sufficient enough, because then
the thing is when large floods it is entirely reasonable to think that if there was, even if it's not a global flood, an enormous flood that covered a wide swath of area, there would be remains. We would have remains, and we would have written records, right?
Can I kind of get more of an explanation on why we would expect written records? Because I think that has a little bit of an assumption.
Yeah. So the ancient Egyptians, they wrote like everything, right? There was like we have writings going back 5,000 years from the ancient Egyptians, basically continuously, and yet they were right there, right? Keep in mind, Egypt borders, what would have been the land of Israel, right? Like they are bordering, and like arguably Egypt, depending on the time period, even controlled that region, and they don't record any such thing. And so, like, if there was a flood, you would think that somebody would have written down, hey, all of the villages in our northeast province have been wiped out by, Osiris sending down the floodwaters or something, right? Like, you can't say that there was this like catastrophic event and then just nobody wrote about it and it left no evidence. That seems very far-fetched to me.
Okay, maybe because I might have different like epistemological framework that's like sort of background that I would deny those specific conditions, because I don't even think there's like I think even today there's applications where people might assume like historians should write everything and they don't, right?
Well, but the Egyptians did. They recorded. They didn't write literally everything. Like they didn't write. Well, actually, in some cases they wrote down like what they ate for breakfast, or we have a case of like we have the written records of like a kid complaining to his mom about not wanting to do homework. And the Egyptians wrote down so much, so it would be extremely implausible to me that this enormous world-shattering thing would not appear in any written records by the Egyptians, right?
I'd have to look, because my last understanding of any of the archaeology is going to be like ancient Mesopotamian like flood layers and stuff like that, and which I'd have to look more into that, because I know there was flood deposits found in certain cities in Mesopotamia that would indicate there was devastating.
Mesopotamia was between two very flood-prone rivers. They liked to flood all the time. So, and actually, it actually makes really, really good sense, right? That they would have a flood story because they were surrounded by two very important rivers that flooded all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I would suppose, but I think the understanding that Walton is claiming, at least in his sort of interpretations of like the ancient cosmology and theology, is going to say that there was like a real devastating flood in a local sense. How massive that local disaster would have been, maybe up to like debate depending on the archaeology. But like, again, I don't hold archaeology as the end all be all, just because of the issues dealing with like how you apply the priors to something like a lot of the wars that happened in the Old Testament. Like I know there's a lot of skeptics I've had conversations with where like there's wars that are present, but then there may be one or two, and then they're like, well, because of the absence of those sorts of archaeological evidence, therefore it's going to be inconclusive and not taken as serious. I would apply the same sort of standard to like the flood. There seems to be real evidence of actual flooding, again, in the regions that we seem to agree with. Now, how that transfers to how the ancient culture may have interpreted it in terms of what this is teaching about the theology may be up for debate. But
all right, well, I think that it's probably fair that we should leave it there. Anything else you want to mention before I let you go?
Yeah, I've seen some of the story about some of the medical issues you're going through, and I just want to say that I'm glad that you have been doing better, and that was more of a fluke than it was real. So
I do appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man. Have a good rest of your day, though.
You too. Take care. I'm glad that we could get off the continental stuff, because the continental stuff I get so sad about. Like, it's just I'm like, I just don't want to do it. Let's read some super chats, and we'll bring up our next chat. Our next guest, from Dr. Fudge with the $10. There's actually a few floods that are proposed as likely sources of the cultural memory that led to the flood myth that became the Noah flood myth. My fave's the Shuruppak flood layer 5,000 years ago. Yeah, look, it's plausible that there was a flood that happened in Mesopotamia and wiped out some important cities or something like this. But it seems like that I don't know if it's even possible for like a river to flood in such a way that it would cover such large swaths of land that are not like bordering the river, right? And from the Devil's PD with the $10, the Egyptians didn't write about Noah's flood because all their paper got wet. Duh. Well, joke's on you. They didn't use paper. They used stone. And from Chase Martin Physics with the $10, this is a contradiction with the Bible. God's stated purpose for the flood was wiping out all of humanity to restart with Noah's bloodline. A local flood would not accomplish this. That's true, but if you interpret that figuratively, then all bets are off, right? And from a Barnabas with the $5, Genesis 7:4 specifically says, from the face of the earth. The book clearly says it was global regardless of current knowledge. Yeah, I mean, the point that he was trying to make is something like, oh, well, it was metaphor, it was hyperbole, that kind of thing. All right, let's bring up our next guest. It looks like that Kyle Teeter is still not here. But we do have a guest in Discord, Exotic Goku. Exotic Goku, how's it going?
Hello.
Howdy.
Hi.
Exotic Goku, do you believe in God?
I do.
Okay. Give me just 1 second, okay?
Okay.
Did we speak recently?
A few weeks ago, I believe, maybe like a month ago or something.
Was it on this topic?
Yes.
Okay. Then I have 4 other people that I haven't spoken to, so I'm gonna let you go because I try to keep it fresh.
Okay then.
But
is it all right
perhaps another time.
I just like kind of glaze you? Just what?
Okay. You want to glaze me? No, actually, no. I refuse. I mean, like, obviously I appreciate it. It's just probably not a great use of time. From Spiderface with the $5, Harry Potter, the only true savior. Potterism, the true religion. I am Potterists. Well, I'm glad that you're Potterists. I'm not. All right, let's talk to Robisatsi. Robisatsi, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Robisatsi, do you believe in God?
I do believe in God.
And just so I don't make any incorrect assumptions about you, which one would that be? Are you Christian? Are you Shinto? Are you Hindu? Do you follow the faith tradition of the Aztecs?
To be honest, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But I am a monotheist.
You're a monotheist. Okay. Do you think that the God do you think that the God that you believe in is good?
No, I don't think so. I think the God that I believe in is a creator. So
Okay.
that's their primary attribute, and in creating, you get all kinds of chaos and order, right?
Okay. Why should I believe in this God?
Well, in light of the recent discoveries in quantum physics, and with the Willow computer as well being built and what it's capable of, I've heard, and I have a rudimentary understanding, so please forgive me, but I've heard that
I don't know if I can legally forgive you, but continue.
Okay. I've heard we're going to be able to simulate at least, like, maybe not universes on the scale that we live in, but we're going to be able to simulate creation to a certain extent.
Why do you think that?
I've just done some reading, and I've read that it's not unforeseeable in the near future.
I mean, like, what if I said I think it is?
Oh, just please explain to me why,
because the amount of so computation requires energy. The amount of energy required to simulate a universe that is as detailed as ours is more energy than is available in the universe.
Okay, and I thought that's what the quantum processing chip Willow does.
No, quantum computers don't speed this up at all.
Well, it uses the superposition.
Yep, it doesn't rescue us though.
Can you explain to me? Because from what I understood, it's able to process like an unquantifiable number of things almost instantaneously. Like it solved an equation that would have taken an immeasurable amount of time in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it did do that because the problem that it was given is a problem that quantum computers are fast at solving and classical computers are slow at solving. But this fact that it takes a certain amount of energy to do a computation, that is a law of physics. It is not avoided by quantum mechanics.
Okay, one thing that I've read is that, a quantum computer or a quantum processor like Willow would be able to use dark energy and dark matter.
Nope. That's made up.
Is it?
We don't even know if dark energy is a thing that can be used. Dark matter, we have no idea what it is, so how could we make any claims about whether or not a certain kind of computer could use it? Also, using dark energy for computation wouldn't be any faster than using silicon.
Okay. But that's an assumption, right? Like, because what I've read is theoretical, but what I've read says that, the processing that's done in a computer is it's potentially comparable to the processing done in the universe using dark matter and dark energy, like 95%.
I don't know what processing in the universe you're referring to.
Well, the recent discovery, the recent Nobel Prize in physics was that the universe is rendered.
No, it wasn't. Not even in the slightest. Are you referring to the 2022 Nobel Prize, the one that was awarded to Elena Aspect and two other people whose names I'm blanking on right now?
Oh, so it was 2022?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they weren't awarded the Nobel Prize for the proving that the universe is rendered. It has nothing to do with that.
Wow, that's what I read. I must be reading some propaganda then.
So what I would suggest, and I suggest this for everybody who doesn't have a background in physics, is if you're going to read physics stuff, make sure that the place you read it is like phys.org or like nature.com and not like the Daily Beast.
Okay. So can you give me like a better definition then? Like how could it have been confused with the universe rendering itself?
I have no idea. The 2022 Nobel Prize was awarded for essentially proving that the universe has fundamentally quantum features.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go read more on that. But just somebody in the chat said, how can that relate to God? Well, I mean, just to connect the dots, like if we could potentially create universes that are very detailed, and we could, and I think there was the statement that Elon Musk made about the possibility that we're living in the original simulation or not the simulation, but the original universe is 1 in a billion? What was he referring to? If not,
I don't know, but I wouldn't. He's not a physicist in any sense of the word, so I wouldn't believe him when he says stuff like that. In fact, my general view is that if Elon Musk is saying something about something that doesn't have to do with cars or SpaceX, you'd probably be better informed if you just believed the opposite of what he said.
Okay. Do you mind if I do a search really quick?
I can send you a relevant paper, or I can pull up a relevant paper if you want. Let me see. So there's a paper that came out last year, around a year ago actually, that just did an analysis of the amount of energy required to simulate a universe that is sufficiently detailed that it could reasonably look like ours. This came out in 2025 by Franco Vazza. And what he shows is that to even get close to rendering a universe like ours, not even rendering the entire universe, just rendering the Earth, and not rendering it any more detailed than what we currently have access to in terms of physics, would require impossibly large amounts of energy, such that we could never do that. Like, there's just not enough energy in the world, or available to us in the universe. Which would mean that if we can't render such a thing, if we can't simulate such a universe, then we have no reason to think that we ourselves are simulated.
Okay, so what does it mean that the local universe, the universe is not locally real?
Yeah, it means that it's either there is some degree of non-locality, or it means that there is some degree of non-reality. And reality doesn't mean here that it's like a simulation. Reality is a specific thing, meaning that objects have all of their properties well defined before interaction, that they are intrinsic rather than based on interaction. And so all we know, and there's one other assumption there that's not talked about often, but all we know is that at least one of those things is true.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand then, like, how does it exist then if we're not experiencing it, if that's the case?
How does it doesn't rely on experience, it relies on interaction.
Right. Well, I mean, so you mean it could be interacting with itself while we're not there?
No, it means that, like, stars shoot out photons, and those photons hit stuff, and that's interaction.
Right. So the universe interacts with itself, and it basically experiences itself. So
I wouldn't say it experiences anything.
Okay. Well, it interacts.
Yeah.
But isn't an interaction an experience?
No. Would you say that if, like, two rocks smack into each other, the rocks are experiencing something?
Well, yeah, because there's consequence, right?
Experience is usually associated with, like, first person subjective experiences, consciousness, these kinds of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I think I understand, like, it being not locally, like, having no locality it's a jump to go from there to saying it's rendered, like it's too big of a jump.
Well, locality has nothing to do with non-locality has nothing to do with rendering whatsoever. Non-locality just means that there could be signals that propagate faster than the speed of light, or phenomena that propagate faster than the speed of light.
Okay, so what I read just made that assumption, like it leapt to that assumption.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, thanks, man. Thanks for clearing that up. I'll go read about it more. And
all right, fair enough. Make sure to go to phys.org or nature.com. Those are going to be your best sources. All right, take care.
Okay.
All right, let's read some super chats and we'll bring up our next guest. From Ampersand with 5 New Zealand dollars, Damascus is right next to Israel and it has over 10,000 years of history with no flood recorded. Does it have continuous writing? I just don't know. And from Adam Baum with the $5, I'm Catholic and I will believe till my end, but you have been very respectful and present logical arguments in my opinion. Have a blessed day. Well, I appreciate that, Adam Baum. From A for Brennan with the $5, I'll stick with Percy Jacksonism, the real one true religion in God, the son of Poseidon and man. He is the way of truth and the surf. Ocean. And from Chase Martin Physics with the $5, using dark matter for a computer that runs on electricity, the thing that famously doesn't interact with E&M fields, that is not how any of this works. True. All right. Let us bring up this person whose name I cannot read, but I'm happy to talk to them. Hey, how's it going?
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing all right. What should I call you? Because I can't read your name.
Yeah, my name is Hassan. I'm a Muslim.
Hassan? Okay, Hassan. So I'm not a Muslim. Why should I believe that Islam is true?
Okay, so first of all, we have to agree or assume that existence of God is a serious topic for you, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And if that is true, then Islam is the best explanation of the necessary being.
Well, first I have to believe that there is a necessary being, right?
Correct. And that is the assumption we have to go with, because if I give you a contingency argument from the philosophical background and regarding the explanation of the universe because it begin to exist, it cannot explain itself. So you must need a necessary ground to explain.
Why can't the universe be the necessary ground?
Because universe is made up of contingent things, and no matter how long chain of contingent things cannot make it independent.
So how are you defining contingent things here? Are you talking about contingency in the sense that there is some, dependence on its existence, or are you talking about contingent in the kind of modal sense, or what sense are you using it here?
Explanation sense.
Sorry?
Explanation.
So you're saying that a thing is contingent if it has an explanation?
No, I'm saying a thing is contingent if it relies on something else for its explanation. That is number one.
Wait, if it relies on something else for its explanation, what does it mean for an object to have an explanation?
I mean, why does it exist?
Okay, so you mean the explanation for its existence. Okay, so it is like the first one. So if I take the view that the universe is the explanation for why all of the stuff within the universe exists, then it seems like the universe itself doesn't need an explanation.
No, it does, because no matter how long chain of contingent things you will make, it will never make it.
What I'm asking is, why should I think that the universe as a whole is contingent?
Because everything which begins to exist has a cause.
Well, I'm not convinced that the universe began to exist, but furthermore, things beginning to exist don't necessarily need an explanation unless you're prepared to defend that.
Okay, but then the question which we are interested in, why do we exist? If that is not important for you,
questions. I think that generally questions about why ultimately end up being probably bad questions. I mean, like you can ask why about a lot of things, like, oh, well, why did you go to the store, and why did you go to this store rather than that store? And then somebody will give you some sort of story about, the reason why they did this is because, they had a bad interaction with somebody at that place. But this is a very human-centric view of the way things are. It's not clear to me that things have questions about why are even good questions when we're talking about things that don't involve human experience.
That's because you're more interested in description than explanation.
Well, hold on. Explanation is not the same thing. So you can give an explanation that answers the question of how without the question of why being meaningful.
Let me process that. So you're saying that the question how is more important than why?
I think that some questions might not have an answer for why, even if they do have an answer for how.
Okay, so do you think that why do we exist is not a question which we humans should pay attention to?
Yeah, I think that it implies. Well, let me rephrase. It's not that it's. I think asking the question of why we exist, like why there is something, why life exists on Earth, say. I think that asking why rather than how is kind of smuggling in that there is some intentional reason behind this, rather than there being no intentional reason behind it.
Yeah, but then how can you explain the intelligibility of this universe? Because you are a physicist, you are a mathematician.
Yep.
And you are understanding this universe with your intelligence, and you're interested in that, of course.
Yeah.
So if this universe is intelligible, then you should be interested in that.
Well, so what is true is that the things that we have understood are intelligible. It seems possible, at least, that there is a far broader universe that is unintelligible, which is why we don't understand it, which is why we don't even have a conception of it, because it's impossible to have a conception about, because it's unintelligible.
That could be a very good argument, but in reality, you and me, we are intelligent beings, right? So it does not matter if some part of universe is not intelligible, but for us, it should be the priority. What do you think?
Well, look, so if I just imagine I'm a universe creator, right? But I'm not like an intelligent one. I kind of just like grab random stuff and throw it into a box, and that's my universe. Then it seems like there will be parts of that universe that are intelligible just because that's how things happen to land, but most of it won't be. So it very well could be the case, it at least seems possible, that the things that we think of as the universe are the intelligible part, because we can't think of anything that's unintelligible, even though there might be orders of magnitude more stuff that is unintelligible that we just can't even conceptualize. We just found ourselves in the one place where intelligibility is possible because we couldn't otherwise think about things if they were unintelligible.
Yeah, but if you are the creator of the universe and you throw a bunch of random stuff, from those things, if one thing, at least one thing, is intelligible, then you cannot rule out the possibility of inquiring about the intelligibility of that universe which you made.
Oh, okay. No. So I'm just to be clear, I'm not saying that like, we shouldn't try to figure out what's going on here. What I'm saying is that it's possible that the reason why the universe that we occupy is intelligible is because we found ourselves in the intelligible part.
That's correct.
And so like, then there is no deeper explanation as to why the universe we're in is intelligible, other than this is the part of the otherwise unintelligible universe that happens to be intelligible. It'd be like if you throw 100 dice, you could ask, well, why do some of them come up with 6? Well, it's because those are the ones that came up 6, right? There's no deeper reason as to why they're 6. It's just that like there was bound to be some of them that were 6, and most of them aren't, but some of them would be.
Yeah, but can we compare ourselves with the dices? Because dices are not.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We can.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna argue on that, because maybe I could understand it completely, but we are intelligible. This universe is intelligible. So
I agree.
It needs an explanation, and
why?
I'm not avoiding that.
Why does it need an explanation?
Because that's a good question. When you're not interested in why do we exist or why does the universe exist, if that is not important to you, that is not important.
Well, no. So I'm asking. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm asking is, why do you think that the existence of intelligibility requires an explanation? And we're talking about a why explanation, not a how explanation.
Can you make it a little simpler, because your English is very good. I'm not a native speaker.
You're fine. You speak more languages than I do. I'm very impressed. Look, so whenever we realize that the world is a certain way, right? Maybe we make some measurements or we think about the world, whatever it is. There are times where we will ask, why is the world this way? There are times where we will ask, how did the world get this way? And there are times where we will recognize that neither of those questions have answers. For example, when I throw dice, there is no answer as to why or how that die ended up on 6 and the other one didn't. I mean, like, barring the fact that like we could describe like some sort of bouncing, and imagine that they were like truly random dice. There's no explanation for why one of them landed up on 6 and the other one landed up on 2. That's just a fact of the world, and it just happened to be that the one that landed up on 6 landed up on 6, and the one that landed up on 2 landed up on 2. So that would be an example of something in the world that we don't have answers, and there are no answers for how or why. Then there are questions about, what's the explanation for how the moon is the moon of, or how, what's the explanation for the tides? And that's a how question, right? Mm-hmm. And we would say, oh, well, the moon has gravity and the sun has gravity, and so it affects the water and blah, blah, blah. And then there's questions that we ask why about, which are like, why were you, or why, I don't know, why did you choose the university that you chose, right? Those are why questions. I don't think that questions about the universe's intelligibility is a why question. I think at best it's a how question.
Actually, I have a different perspective on how. You know why? Because when a person, or you and me, when we ask the question for how, the motive behind asking that question how is either you want to recreate that. That could be the one reason you ask how.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So when anybody asks a question how, the motivation behind that question is that either you want to recreate that thing, right?
Not
For
always.
example, no, not always, but that is one of the options.
I mean, yeah, sure,
Okay.
I guess sometimes.
Yeah. The second thing could be you want to appreciate it, right?
Yeah, sure.
For example, yeah. Second thing is you want to criticize it, right?
Sure.
So in my opinion, and that's my opinion, you can differ with that, but in my opinion, these are the three possibilities, the three possible motives for asking how. Now,
which one of those is like understanding?
What do you mean?
Well, like, what if you're asking how because you want to understand it?
Yeah, that's. Let me conclude the argument.
Okay.
So, I'm saying that when you ask a question how, either you want to recreate that thing, okay. Number two, you want to appreciate it. Number three, you want to criticize it. So, if we take the question that how the universe existed, the first thing rules out. Because you cannot recreate it. You just said that, and we know that we cannot recreate that massive universe. No. So first rule out. Then you have only two options left, which is either you appreciate it or criticize it. You cannot criticize it. Why? Because you don't govern the laws of physics. You don't govern the laws of all those things. You don't govern it. You cannot make a difference if you criticize it or not.
Well, but that's irrelevant, right? You can criticize things that you can't affect. Like I can criticize I can criticize like the Israeli government, even though I can't do anything about it.
Yes, but that will not be a meaningful thing, right?
What do you mean it's not meaningful? It's meaningful. People do it.
Yeah,
you can criticize people. You can criticize things. You can criticize things all you want.
Yeah. So why I'm saying that, because how does universe existed, or how it exists, can give us so many other things. Like we are exploring the universe and we are finding the different things. We are getting the technology for us to use to explore it more, but we cannot recreate it.
Yeah, I agree.
So for me, and it's my preference, it's my priority, that when I'm born, now when I look around this, that why I'm here. And why do I have this mind and conscious, and I have guilt, and I have sense of good and sense of evil? Why does that in me? Why it doesn't have in a stone, or not in a flower, or not in any other thing which is like just matter? It doesn't move without putting an external force from it. So, but I can choose. It's on my will. So if I have will on a very smaller scale in the universe, that shows that the creator of this universe, you name it, even whoever it is more intelligent than the universe itself. So
how does that follow?
That follows like this, that the knowledge which we know right now, that how the universe was created, and also the laws of physics and everything, we can fairly assume this will be IBE, okay? Inference to best explanation. I'm not saying that this is a proof or I'm proving it through it, but this is the most smartest option to go with. That is why.
How do you evaluate that?
Yes, and to be honest with you, I can explain to you here. However, I have wrote a paper, and that's my first paper, by the way. I can be totally silly, and I wanted to have a hostile criticism on that. And I was watching your live and your reasoning. If you can give me your email ID, I can send you that paper. It's just 6 pages to 9 pages. You can read it and you can Just
I probably
throw it
won't,
out of the
but
window.
I probably won't. But look, there are criticisms of the language of inference to the best explanation. Like people say inference to the best explanation when they only have one explanation that they've considered, right?
That
And
is true.
when that's the case, when you say, oh well, this is just the inference to the best explanation, how do you know when you've considered enough explanations?
Yeah, because if the
Like, yeah,
question is,
it's the best. It's the best of one. How do you know that the next one that you won't come up with isn't better? I
Yeah,
think that
so for
the better
that-
move is to be agnostic.
That's fine, but there is a criteria which depends on the importance and the priority for which we are assuming this. Okay, so for example, the lawful cosmos is something. Intelligibility is this.
Sorry,
The extent of
the what
explanation,
cosmos?
the lawful cosmos.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
sure. So there is some
And
intelligibility. What's
the
the
level of explanation.
what are
the
the
lev-
possible explanations for the intelligibility?
Now I'm giving you a set of let's say the variables which can be compared with. Like for example, for
Okay,
me,
yeah.
if you
So
ask
you have intelligibility. You have what else do you have?
coherence, you have internal coherence. You have there are some more. I mean, and then you have the lawful nature of this universe. And then you have the explanation, the level of explanation, the extent of explanation you can get out of the options you have. So, for example, if
Okay,
we
so
have
hold on. So let's just take those four things, right? Those four things you listed. Okay, what are the different explanations that you can consider for those four things?
So let's see the rivals which are against
Yeah,
me.
that's what I'm asking you. What are the explanations? What are the possible explanations for those?
Yeah. So number one is the brute fact, right? It is just
A brute fact by definition kind of isn't like saying that these are just brute facts. That isn't an explanation, right?
Yeah, brute fact is not an explanation at all.
Right. So
But
I'm asking
there are
what are the possible explanations
Yeah,
for
but
these facts?
there are people who consider brute fact as an explanation. So that is also right.
Brute facts are not explanations. So I'm asking you, what are the actual explanations that are possible here?
Yeah, the second explanation would be the necessary universe, as you said. Right?
Okay.
This can be another explanation.
Does it? Wait, and to be clear, do you take it that the necessary universe can account for those four facts that you listed?
I think this is the best contender in my model, in my framework. That is the most one which is giving me the difficulty to counter.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is infinite regress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the infinite regress, as you know that you are a very logical person, the infinite regress cannot give you an explanation. It can delay it to a unlimited time. It's not definite. So
well, I mean
then there are law
that's not quite right.
primitives.
That's not quite right, by the way. Like it's not the case that just because you have an infinite regress of explanations that it follows that that you have no explanation at all. I mean, if you have a collection of objects and each object in that collection has an explanation, I think it's probably pretty reasonable to say that the collection as a whole has been explained.
But that is circularity.
It's not. There's nothing circular there at all. It's just saying if every element in your infinite regress is explained, then there's no explanation needed. You've explained everything.
Yeah, but then how can you explain the existence? Because if this universe was caused by another cause, and the first cause is not known, cannot get
there isn't a first cause if you have an infinite regress.
Yes, I know that. So why we have to go on the first cause? Because if the first,
I got us off topic.
Point,
okay, so I got us off topic. So I don't think that there's a logical issue with infinite regress, but you think that that's not a valid explanation anyway. So you think that. So what are the other explanations? Other plausible explanations for these four facts?
I gave you how many? One is the infinite.
You've given me two.
One is the necessary universe.
Yep.
And then there are law primitives. Then there are materialists who says that material was there itself, and that is also weak because we know that there was a t0 and the space 0, and
well, hold on. I mean, I don't grant that, by the way.
You don't agree with that?
No.
I think that you're right.
But look. So what I'm getting at is
what else could be there? Can you guide me? So I gave you.
I don't think that's a pretty good list. But to say that therefore you've considered all of these options, You've considered all of these options. Maybe you've considered 3 or 4 options or something, to say that, well, I've picked the best one from these 4 options, and therefore we should believe that. It just seems like that you're saying, well, I don't need to worry about considering anything else. How do you know when to stop considering new options?
Yeah, because as a human being, when we decide on something, we always weigh the best out of them. Maybe we don't know until that there is another best, but if we have 4 options in front of us, we choose the best one, which
Only
can
if,
give.
no. The only time we do that is when a choice is made, or when a choice is needed to be made. You don't have to make a choice here. You can be agnostic.
But the agnostic cannot claim that there is no God. I mean, then you cannot claim.
I know. An agnostic, withholds belief.
Yeah, but interesting thing is that whenever I talk to an atheist, he says he's an atheist, but when I say okay, and then he takes the position, he switches the position to agnostic.
I am an atheist. What I'm saying is that you should be an agnostic if what you're trying to do is inference to the best explanation. I'm not saying you have to be an atheist. I'm saying that you haven't given me a good reason that you should be a theist rather than an agnostic. Also, there's some horrible background noise. It's like some horrible echo.
Now it's fine?
It happens whenever I talk.
Okay, I will mute when you talk, okay?
Okay. So,
go ahead.
Right, so all I'm saying is not that... I'm not saying you have to be atheist. I'm saying that the reasons you've given for being a theist don't seem to be any... It seems like the reason that you've given me why I should be a theist, it seems like using that same line of reasoning, it would be better if I was an agnostic rather than a theist.
Yeah, but then you are self-defeating your position, because you are taking a position as an atheist, but you are not motivating me to be an atheist. So that means that you are not confident enough to convince me on that.
I'm not trying to convince you to be an atheist.
But you're suggesting me to take, according to you, you are asking me to take a weaker position, whereas you think yourself in a better position. So why would you do that?
What I'm saying is that I'm taking the reasoning. So you've tried to give me some reasoning as to why I should be a theist, why I should believe that this God exists, and using that reasoning, it seems like it would be more responsible using your reasoning that I should at best be an agnostic.
I would rule out, because agnosticism is no better than a brute fact.
Agnosticism doesn't hold any positions at all. It's withholding belief, right?
Yeah, but they believe that there is a higher power.
Agnostics do not believe that there's a higher power. Agnostics withhold belief.
They say they don't know, but there is something that is running the show, or not?
No, that's not what agnostics believe. That would just be a theist. Perhaps an agnostic theist, but that would be a theist.
But you can be agnostic about so many things.
Yes.
Even you are in a religion at all, because that's something which is, you say you don't know, but that is not an explanation. So we have to see that
agnostics don't claim to have an explanation.
That's what I'm saying, that if I'm interested in explanation, theism gives me the best explanation. And when I go to theism, I see
it gives you the best explanation of the explanations you've considered.
Correct.
But
and if you have a better one,
using that same reasoning, if I can come up with something that I can only think of one explanation for it, then it seems like that it's, at least in your view, it would be reasonable for me to believe the thing that I can only come up with one explanation for, even though I haven't considered anything else.
That's correct.
But that's trivially false. Like, or I don't want to say it's false. It's trivially bad epistemology. Let's suppose that I'm a caveman, right? And the only explanation I can come up with for why lightning strikes is because there's a man on top of a mountain who throws lightning bolts. If you then tell me, well, that is good epistemology to believe that a man on top of a mountain is throwing lightning bolts, that's crazy talk.
Yeah, true, but from the perspective of Islam, if you have read Quran?
Not in its entirety, no.
Okay, so I can suggest you that you can have the passages which are related to the physics, and the cosmology.
Hold on. We are not talking about the Quran yet. You said you wanted to convince me that a God exists to begin with, and then and only after that could we get to the Quran.
That is correct.
So don't pivot to the Quran now.
Okay, so you are telling me to take the agnostic position, which I think is
using your reasoning. If your reasoning is why you think I should believe in God, if you think that that's good reasoning, then it seems like it would imply that you should be an agnostic.
okay, but we haven't gone into your argument of, let's say, necessary universe or whatever you think the explanation is. You accepted that infinite regress is good enough, whereas logically an indefinite argument is not better than a definite argument. So
I don't know what's the logic. Wait, how do you conclude that logically? Where's the logical argument that an indefinite argument is worse than a definite argument or something?
The name of itself is indefinite, because
why are you why is indefinite worse than definite?
Because indefinite is not going to give us any explanation. It can only tell us, okay, it can delay the explanation. It cannot give you a definite ground
that depends
where you can.
That depends on your philosophy of explanations, right? Like if you hold the view, which I think is at least plausible, that if you have an explanation for everything for every object in a set, then you have an explanation for the set, then you get a full explanation if you take the infinite regress route.
Yes, but if the explanation for me is that if I'm living in a society, like in the world, what is best for me and the society overall?
Now we're doing pragmatism? Why are we talking about pragmatic reasons to believe?
That's not pragmatic reason. I mean,
you just said what's best for society.
Yes, of course, because if I want best for me, it will be honest to have the best for everyone. So because everyone
best for you doesn't have best for you isn't related with truth, right? Why are we talking about pragmatism now?
No, I'm not saying that. See, the solution, we have to find a solution where we can explain it in the best way and we can live in harmony. That is the motivation through which you are also living and I'm also living. Yeah. Right? That is a real thing. Good and evil, that's real. So if we have
that's arguable, but sure.
So then we have to look for an option. And the first thing which I told you, that the first thing is that once we will agree to the IBE, and if you have a better explanation, then God, and with a lesser cost on the, let's say, like brute fact is simple, but it doesn't give you an explanation. And there are other things also factors in. So out of that, the best option is the necessary ground. Okay, and when we agree on the necessary ground.
So to be clear, you haven't established that, right? You haven't established that that's the best explanation. You haven't even established that that's the best explanation given the options you've laid out.
Okay, so what do you think is the weakest link in my argument? I will try to explain that to you.
Well, my point is you haven't demonstrated how one explanation is better than another.
Because for that we need to lay off and agree on certain parameters on which we can judge all of them.
I agree.
We can score them, and we have not established that mechanism. That's why you can argue with me unlimitedly, and you can just deny it.
Look, I take the view that all of this talk about necessary and contingent and all of that talk, I take that that's like a human way of understanding things that don't really have those kinds of properties. I think that, this is a very take a very quietist view about necessity and contingency. But more generally, it seems like explanations are not things that we should expect in every case, especially not why explanations. How explanations, we would like there to be how explanations for everything, but that's not always the case either. And so this whole issue seems fraught. Like you're trying to ask about why things are this way. And I'm not even convinced that that's a good question.
Yeah, because maybe we have not agreed to certain parameters on which we can judge. If you can lay off some priorities based on you, and I can agree on those priorities, and we can judge all the explanations based on that parameters which we decide. We can score them from 10 on the scale of 10.
Sure.
And we can see which gives the best thing, and then we can talk about it.
Sure. My priority is figuring out how the universe works. That's my priority.
Yeah, but
an explanation that answers that question would be the best explanation in my view. Or we can say physical reality if you don't like the word universe.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But I mean, even I'm interested in that, but I'm theistic and you are atheistic. So even though you and me are both interested in the same thing, doesn't mean that you have a better approach being atheistic.
I didn't say I had a better approach.
Yeah, so I mean, then this argument is that, okay, you are interested in explanation how, I am also interested in how, and you are still finding it and you're trying to find out, and I have certain ground to hold on to from where I can extract the humanity, I can extract the conscious, I can extract all those good and evil and all those things. So I have a better approach and a better practicality in the society.
How can you? How do you extract?
To be unsure.
Wait, how is your approach better?
Because I ground something to, let's say, morality. Okay, so I ground it in the objective, but in your position,
well, no, you don't. You ground it in you ground it in a being with a mind, so that's subjective. But like, yeah, I hold the view that morality isn't objective. So I would ground it in mental states.
That's correct, but then you can not prove that the slavery, once it was accepted in the society, was bad. You will say, yeah.
Hold on. To be clear, I can't prove it's objectively bad because I don't think that objectively bad makes any sense. I think that that's like saying a jumbo shrimp. But I can say that it's bad. Absolutely, I can say it's bad.
Yes, but you cannot bind it or make it an obligation for everyone to follow, because that will be your opinion. And even though
you're right, I can't make it an obligation for everyone to follow. Okay.
Yeah, but you are living in a world where you are obligated to do certain things, and obligation is a reality. I mean, you can avoid obligations.
What am I obligated to do?
Like, for example, on stopping on a red light, you do it.
I do that not because of an external obligation, but because of an internal desire.
Internal desire, yeah, and that's you.
So I can't make anybody else have. I can't make anybody else have different internal desires. I mean, I can try to change them, but that's ultimately it's internal, not external.
But still, that is only one parameter. Like morality is one parameter. There is another thing, explanation. Then you have the lawfulness. Then there are other things.
What lawfulness?
Of this cosmos.
Oh, yeah, sure. I interpret those as being merely descriptions rather than prescriptions.
But descriptions give you that what you look at, right? But it doesn't give you the deeper answer. For example, if I say, okay, why the car is moving, or how the car is moving, you will say, yeah, because the wheels are rotating. Yeah, whereas that is a description. You saw it and you said it. Whereas being a scientist in your level, you should be more interested in that there is a combustion going on in the engine, and there is a cam, and there's a shaft, and then there is a transfer.
More detailed laws of physics are more detailed descriptions than just like, that's red, but they are descriptions. They're descriptions of observed uniformity, right?
Yeah. Then where you will draw the line of an explanation and description? How do you differentiate an explanation from a description?
So descriptions can be explanations.
Yes.
For example, like
not always.
Not all explanations are descriptions.
Of course, they are two different things. Yeah. Some descriptions could be good enough for you.
I don't take laws of physics to be explanations themselves. I take them to be descriptions of explanations. That's
a new thing. I just learned it right now. That okay, that's another way to look at it, and that's good. So, I mean, if we have to take on this thing to a next level, if we can assign parameters and we can discuss that, and then we can see that what explanation, and you can bring all the explanation. If you want to add an explanation which you believe is best, we can argue against the necessary ground. Okay.
Well, are we talking about explanations of how or explanations of why?
Why?
Well, I don't think that explanations of why are necessarily exist.
Yeah, but the thing is that how explanations are not more important. Why? Because
more important than what?
Do things. Then the why, because
I don't,
how
look, I don't think that why explanations exist in many cases.
Such as
anything that doesn't involve human interactions, basically.
Yeah, but we are interested in the human interactions.
Well, yeah. So we can talk about why
For us.
we can talk about why people do things, no problem, because people have intentions, and we can talk about those intentions. That's what a why explanation is. It's a description of intention, and perhaps also a description of the decision-making process that goes towards making a decision, and so on and so forth. But we're not talking about just how humans interact with each other. We're talking about how the world is, like the whole reality, right? And that doesn't have to have a why. It doesn't have to have an explanation for why.
That's your opinion, and I respect that.
All right, Hassan, I'm going to let you go because you've been on for a while, and I do want to move on to some new guests.
You're being very kind, and I would say that you get well soon. I saw a couple of videos on your TikTok.
I'm doing okay.
And
we're good.
Happy, good, yeah. And thank you for having me. And maybe, I mean, if you be so kind, I can send you a paper. It's only 6 pages. You can.
I'm just gonna be upfront. I'm not gonna read it. People try to send me stuff all the time, and I never end up reading them just because I don't have the time.
Okay, and can you ask any of your assistants to do that?
I don't have any assistants. What you think I have a whole team back here? It's just me.
I mean, it looks like you have a whole team.
No, it's just me.
It's you? That's good.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here, Hassan. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
It was a good conversation, but his audio was so bad. All right, let's read some super chats. We have Gretchen. By the way, I do have like an admin who runs my Discord. She is great, but I don't have like a team of like editors and like a secretary. Like I don't have any of that. From Gretchen with the $3. Okay, time to go now. Run along. From Jessica with the, what is that? $10 Australian. The central theme of the Sherlock Holmes stories is that simple, easy explanations are so often wrong. You find the explanation that fits all the data, even if it's difficult, confusing, and unsatisfying. That's a good point. That's a good point. And from Phantom with the £5, isn't suffering indicated by biomarkers and death a good objective reference for morality? I don't think so. That's only objective if you care about suffering. Right? Like, and you could say that everybody cares about suffering, and that might be true, but that's still subjective. It's just universal. All right, so we do have some guests on Discord. Let's bring them up. From Bashil. Actually, I think Raccoon has been here longer, so let's talk to Raccoon. Raccoon, how's it going? Gotta unmute yourself, by the way.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hello.
Howdy. Raccoon, do you believe in God?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe in Christianity, kind of. It's like my main one.
Okay. Now, look, I don't. Why should I be a Christian?
So, my main thing is, like, there's the Shroud of Turin.
Mm-hmm.
The Eucharistic miracles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm kind of like, the ones where the body, or like the host, the communion, has turned into like actual blood. And all the blood types have been tested, and they're all the same, like on the Shroud of Turin and things like that.
The blood types have been tested on the Shroud of Turin. Is that true? I've never heard this claim.
As if there's a god.
Sorry, you cut out there for a minute. Can you repeat that?
Sorry, what's about?
You said that blood testing was done on the Shroud of Turin, and then you cut out. So I missed everything after that.
Okay. So the blood testing did on the Shroud of Turin and the blood testing from the Eucharist.
Oh, you're cutting out again.
The blood type is the same, and for me, the only way that I can believe that is if there is a God.
The only way that you could think that the blood type on the Shroud of Turin could be the same as the blood types claimed in Eucharistic miracles is that there's a God?
No. I mean the fact that the Eucharistic miracles even like turned into blood.
Well, I'm not convinced that they did. So.
No.
No.
Why not?
Well, the Eucharistic miracles that I've looked into are either not well documented, and so we don't really have a good reason to think that they happened, or they were the testing that was done. Like I'm familiar of one that was, I think it happened in South America or something, and they sent it to a guy to test, like, and it was like cardiac tissue. It just happened to be that the guy that they sent it to was a Catholic who just happened to have written papers about transmutation or transubstantiation in the past. Like, why didn't you send it to like an objective laboratory? Why'd you send it to this one guy?
I guess that is a decent
so like
point.
like that seems to be like a recurring theme. And so I would love to hear why I should think that these are like genuine, real things, miracles.
Well, my thing is that it's happened in more than like one situation. And then there's also, with the Shroud of Turin, they reconstructed it from like what, like I don't know how, but they reconstructed it to see what he would look like because it was over his face, and they got a model of his face. I don't know. I'm not sure why you should believe it, I guess, is my point. But I believe it.
Look, it sounds like you're believing some of the studies that were done in the Shroud of Turin. So what do you make of the other studies of the Shroud of Turin that indicate that it is that like carbon dated it to, you know, the 12th or the 13th century? Or I think it's 13th or 14th century rather.
Sorry, my internet went out for a second there. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, so I just said, like, look, if we're believing the studies that were conducted on the Shroud of Turin, why aren't we believing the studies conducted on the Shroud of Turin, the carbon dating, that indicates that the Shroud of Turin was produced, you know, in the 1300s?
You know what? I actually didn't know about that.
Yeah, this was done in the 80s, and it was done between 3 independent laboratories.
Damn, okay. That is very objectively. Yeah, damn. I may just have to believe you on this. I'll look into it, but you might just be right.
Yeah, I mean, like that carbon dating is real. Like, you can go look. It was done in the 80s.
Yeah, no, I believe
it definitely happened.
That.
So the question is what's the explanation for why that's the result that they're getting?
Yeah, no, that's true. Damn. I'm gonna have to bow out because that was like my 2 points.
Okay.
I'm not like super into it, but
okay, fair enough. Well, thanks for being here, Raccoon.
Yeah, no problem. I love your content.
I appreciate that. It's very sweet. Well, he was sweet. He was cute. All right, let's bring up another guest, this time from TikTok. Let's talk to Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse. Well, they're not here yet. One moment. Oh, they didn't want to connect. All right, let's bring up another guest from Discord then. Let's talk to, I think Bashil was next. Bashil. Gotta unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Howdy.
How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Bashil, do you believe in a god?
I do.
Okay, and which one would that be? Just so I don't want to make any incorrect assumptions about you.
You're all right. I am a Christian.
Okay, so why should I believe in Christianity?
I had 2 main points here.
Mm-hmm.
One is objective moral fact.
Okay.
Where do you stand on that?
I don't think there are any.
Okay. So what I don't understand there is how you could justify that viewpoint, that there just are no objective moral fact, whenever there are certain things that objectively everyone can agree that the Holocaust was a bad event. Slavery is not good.
I mean, that's not true. There are plenty of people who thought that it wasn't enough.
Well, okay. And just to round up on that guy who said something about the shroud, I do believe, I'm not super well studied, but I do believe there was multiple patchworks done to the shroud, as it wasn't like a super preserved article. If that makes sense. Like, it's not like it was carried around.
That may be true, but the piece that they tested was analyzed very, very closely, and it wasn't a patchwork. The piece that they carbon dated was not part of a patchwork.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, and he left. Okay. All right. Let's talk to Daniel. Daniel, how's it going?
Oh, hi.
Daniel, do you believe in a god?
I do. I'm Catholic.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right, and just curious, it's not relevant, but were you like raised in a Catholic household, or did you convert to Catholicism later?
No, I've been raised in a Catholic household for.
Okay. Right. So why should I be Catholic, or why should I be Christian, let alone Catholic?
Well, so I was hearing you guys talk about the contingency arguments. I'm sure you're aware of like the first cause arguments and contingency argument for God. Why don't you believe in the first cause argument?
I'm not convinced that our universe had a beginning. So I'm not convinced that there was a first cause. No, I don't know why it would.
I mean, the argument goes that it has to have a first cause. I mean, there had to be something that, let's say, started itself to create everything. I mean, things can't just come into existence, right?
I'm not convinced that the universe ever didn't exist.
So the universe just always existed?
At least that seems like a live option.
Yeah. There's also another argument that the universe, the universe is so perfectly tuned for the condition of life on Earth. Like if the Earth was just a little bigger, life couldn't exist, or if it was a little smaller, it couldn't exist.
I mean, that's not true, right? It's just not true.
You sure?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I've done multiple like theology classes, and that's everything.
Then you were lied to. Like the Earth, if the Earth was slightly bigger, then gravity would be slightly stronger, and there's no reason to think that just because gravity, the surface gravity on the Earth was like 1% higher, that life couldn't exist. Life arose in, in the water, right? And in the water, the relative strength of gravity isn't particularly relevant. So, I mean, it's just not true that, if Earth was slightly bigger or if Earth was slightly closer to the sun, it's just not true that life couldn't exist.
All right. And then something else I saw you talking about was the Shroud of Turin. How do you know that the piece that they carbon dated wasn't? So what the other guy was talking about was there was a fire. I can't remember where, but there was a fire, and so the nuns had to patch it up, and presumably their carbon dating was...
The segment that was taken from the shroud was intentionally not... because this fire is known about, right? Like, this is known.
Right.
It's like historically attested to. So the segment of the shroud that was taken was intentionally taken to not be from a patched area.
I see. When with that carbon dating, when was it supposed to have been created, the shroud?
Sometime, I think it's like sometime, I think it's between you know, carbon dating doesn't get you to an exact year, but I think it's like the late 1200s to like the mid 1300s is the date range.
Yeah.
Which you know, checks out because historically we have an attestation about when the shroud was created.
I see.
And in fact, we have an attestation from the 1300s about a guy talking about knowing the forger, knowing the person who made it. And that exactly lines up with the radiocarbon dating that we have.
Although I heard something that the Shroud of Turin couldn't have just been created, like the way that the imprint on the Shroud of Turin was created, it would have, let's say it was created all the way back when Jesus had resurrected. It said that there was supposed to be like 1,000,000 joules of energy or something that had to go through to actually imprint that printing onto it.
If there were 1,000,000 joules of energy that went through the Shroud of Turin would be dust.
Well, right, that's the miracle about it, is that it's still
well here. No, so I mean it's just not true that 1,000,000 joules went through it. Also, I don't know why anybody would think that like it requires 1,000,000 joules to produce this. Like, you could just paint it on.
See, but I'm looking at a study right now, and it's not painted.
How do we know it's not painted? I'm pretty sure like it's like, you know, consistent with being red ochre, which is, you know, was a pigment that was used. Red ochre is a pigment that was used to produce like dark reds, like reddish browns.
But you think that the same people who did the carbon dating would have looked at it? I'm saying you don't think that that it wasn't painted?
I think it's plausible that it was painted.
Basically, you think it's fake, or you think that?
Well, I think well, okay. So I think it's not clear that it's not clear that it was like intentionally made to deceive. It could have been like somebody creating a piece of art, right?
Yeah.
And so like maybe it's not fake in that somebody passed it off as intentionally real, but it definitely seems like somebody made it in the 1300s.
I see. So, yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't think it was faked. I mean, I've heard a lot of things that the imprints, like specifically how something about how the image of Christ on the shroud, you can't fake that.
So where do you think that image came from? How do you think the image got there?
Well, during the, I mean, it's assumed that during the resurrection, there had to be some sort of blast of energy that imprinted his features into it.
So look,
it's interesting too because
why is it if this is like the biggest piece of, if this is like surefire truth of Jesus's resurrection, why doesn't the church let us study it better?
I mean, we have studied it. That's why we don't know all the things that I'm talking about.
No, but my point is we've only like the only times that we've gotten like a sample to actually examine is in the 80s with the carbon dating. That's the only time. It's the only samples that we have.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't believe that. There's no way that was the only time.
After the carbon dating, no more samples were taken.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I can double check that for you if you want, but like,
I mean, yeah, if you could.
Yeah, but... so there were some first early studies in this, I guess, in the 60s and 70s, but I don't think that they actually took any samples there. They tested for pigments.
You don't think?
Well, no. I mean, but I'm saying that after the radiocarbon dating, which was done in the 80s, we haven't gotten any new samples.
Yeah, I mean.
So why not?
Once we have the. I mean, because we already had studied it. I mean.
Well, no, I mean, like, but there are all these questions about like why, like we have, it's 40 years later since it's been 40 years since the radiocarbon dating. You don't think that we have better tools to make arguments now? or to like analyze these things more efficiently now? Like, you think that, I mean, the latest on the analysis that was done on the samples was the radiocarbon dating, and that came back that it was made in the 1300s, the early 1300s, perhaps.
Again, I still, how do we know that we conclusively took a part that wasn't
I mean,
part of the
you can go look at the paper. Well, okay, so there's two things. One, you can go look at the paper. They do like a whole like, it's all documented, like who was analyzing it, which parts they were taking, like the entire chain of custody. All of this is very, very well documented. And secondly, if it was from a fire in the 15 or 1600s, then the carbon in it would have dated to the 15 or 1600s, right? It wouldn't have dated to the 1300s.
Yeah, this makes sense. So, but what, like, we there was like blood on the Shroud of Turin that we also have identified. Like,
I'm actually not sure if that's true.
The guys before me had said
there are definitely reddish stains on the shroud, and they definitely contain iron oxide. But iron oxide is a pigment.
Yeah.
It's like a reddish brownish pigment, and so like blood also contains iron oxide, but it's not clear that like it's blood on the shroud.
So how do we be sure? I mean, if some people
you would need to test it better, but they don't let us test it better.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sacred, and the world around us, who knows what people would want to do with it. I mean, I would say if I had such an important relic to Catholicism, I wouldn't want just some random scientist. You were saying earlier how it's convenient that they sent some sort of sample to some Catholic guy to examine. But I mean, Catholic, just because you're Catholic,
to be clear, it wasn't just it wasn't just any Catholic guy. It was a Catholic guy who was famous for writing about transubstantiation, like I think he wrote a book about it, about transubstantiation.
Oh,
so this wasn't just any random Catholic guy. This was like a specific guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but a non-Catholic guy would also be biased to say this is fake, right? A non-Catholic guy would look at you could send a sample to every major a scientist that holds every major religion, right? And then see if and if they don't all agree, then somebody's doing something wrong, and then you can examine with the methodologies and stuff. Like, there are ways that you could do this. You don't have to send this to just secular scientists, right? Right, and there was one more thing though that made the Shroud of Turin specifically like a miracle. Is the fact that it's, I forget what you call it, like it's inverted or something. So if you're looking at it in regular light, you could make out a couple details, but not a lot. But once you invert it, then you can make out like the whole body and all of his wounds and everything, which would be not possible to make 13th century.
Why not?
Or somewhere around whenever they.
Why wouldn't it be?
We don't have the technology to.
I don't think it takes technology.
Paint or fake it to make it inverted like that. I mean, you can't make out a lot of
technology. It just requires like artistic prowess, right?
But no, that's the thing, is you can't make it. You can't make something like that with just paint.
Why not?
You just can't. I mean,
what's stopping you? It's like if it's paint, you can just paint it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I want to look it up now though, because I forget what it's called. But you can't make out all the details until you invert the shroud. So like, take all the colors and invert it.
I mean, look, if the colors are there, if you can see it when it's inverted, then that means that there's distinguishing features between there's distinguishing features that are visible when inverted, which means that those distinguishing features are still distinguished even when it's not inverted. Right? That's just what doing the negative of a image does.
Yeah. But people didn't know how to do that in the 13th century.
How do you know? What do you mean? What do you mean people didn't know how to do that?
Well, no, this is just things that I've heard, that I've been taught. Like,
okay.
Although I feel like this is. I mean, this just.
Daniel, let me ask you.
If it was real.
So, look, I think that you think that scientific evidence is usually pretty reliable, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so I do too, which is why we're talking about like scientific studies on this stuff. Do you think that if Christianity is true, do you think that everything that Jesus believed was true? That Jesus didn't believe anything that was false?
Well, I mean, if we're saying everything Jesus believed, like with science, maybe not, because there was like.
Well, he wasn't going to believe anything. He wasn't going to believe anything false, right? Because he's God.
Yeah, I think morally, yes.
So
I don't think he taught.
I'm not talking morally.
Science,
I'm just talking about like anything that he believed. It can't be wrong, because then that would mean that God believed a wrong thing.
Yeah. Right.
So, do you think that Jesus believed that there was a worldwide flood?
There was a worldwide flood?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Although it's interesting, I don't think he ever talked. Did he ever talk about it?
He does. Yeah, he does. In Mark and Matthew, he mentions it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's pretty. I mean, like other people of his day, he would have thought that the global flood was real, and the global flood wasn't real. It's made up. It's a story.
The what said it was made up?
No, it.
It
is true. It's true that it's made up. Like,
yeah.
This is not a real thing that happened in real life.
I see, yeah.
And so it seems like if Jesus was God, then he could only believe true things. Jesus believed a false thing, therefore Jesus couldn't be God.
So can you pull what verse is that in? Let me see if I can get.
Yeah, it's Matthew. I want to say it's Matthew 17. Sorry, it's Matthew 24:37. There's also one in Luke, which is Luke 17:26.
So Luke 17:26.
Yep. And the rest of the verses. It's not just that verse. It's like 26 through I don't know. 26 and 27, I guess.
Because when people say that there wasn't a worldwide flood, but the Bible still talks of a worldwide flood, you have to understand that when that was written, of course people couldn't go around the world and check if there was a flood.
Yep.
So in their perspective, but you're saying that God or Jesus had said that there was a worldwide flood. I need to look at the Bible. Maybe I don't know if I have time for that right now, so I'll look at that later. But
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I really want to look at this verse because
I can read it for you if you want. I have it pulled up.
Oh yeah, good.
So
I just want to make sure it's in context.
Yeah. So the one from Luke 17 is just as it was. And by the way, this is talking about what the Luke 17 is about, like what it's going to be like when he returns, right? Like what the coming kingdom of God will be like. So he says, just as it was in the days of Noah, so also will it be in the days of the Son of Man. People were eating, drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. So this is saying there was a flood that came in the days of Noah. The flood came and it killed everybody. And then you can go find something similar in Matthew 24. Again,
is this Jesus speaking?
Yes, this is Jesus speaking. Yeah.
Like quotation marks. Yeah.
Yep.
So
then he said to his disciples, the time is coming when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, but you will not see it. People will tell you, there he is, here he is. Do not go running off after them. For the Son of Man in his day will be like the lightning which flashes and lights up the sky from one end to the other. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation, just as it was in the days of Noah. And then, yeah. So this is Jesus speaking.
Yeah. I do notice, though, he never says that the flood wiped out. The flood flooded the whole earth, though.
But it did destroy everybody.
Because there was... Right.
How can it destroy everybody if there are people all over the earth, if it didn't cover the whole earth?
How do we know? So, there is evidence, I know, that in somewhere in like Mesopotamia or some places around that there is evidence of flooding, like massive flooding.
Well, so Mesopotamia was a kingdom between two rivers, and these rivers flooded quite frequently. So there are a lot of stories in Mesopotamia about floods. And basically, whenever you have a civilization that's centered around a river that floods irregularly and kind of destructively, those societies inevitably will have stories about floods. Famously, Egypt, which is also a society around a river, the Nile floods basically at the exact same time every year, and so because it's so reliable, they actually view the flooding of the Nile in like a very holy way, in like a very divine way. It's like this is a gift from the gods that the Nile floods so frequently. And so famously, the Egyptians have no record. They have no record of a global flood that wiped them out, right? We have continuous records from Egypt going back 5,000 years, basically recording just normal life going on, passing through the time that the flood was supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's something to think about. It's definitely makes you, I mean, given that he believed in the flood, it makes me just think that he was perhaps not God, he was just like a Jewish guy.
Yeah. That is interesting. I feel like just the way he's talking about it, though, he talks about it in a more metaphorical sense. Like, indeed, in the end of the earth, in the final days, everybody will be wiped out.
Well,
so in Noah.
But he's not saying that at the end of when he returns, he's not saying in the kingdom of God people will metaphorically be wiped out. He's saying that this is a thing that's actually going to happen in the future, like what happened in the past.
Right.
He's doing an analogy, and if the analogy didn't actually, if the thing that he's analogizing to didn't actually happen, then the analogy would fail.
Yeah, I still do think though that the flood back then, if I think that it either did flood all around the earth, and just the way it terraformed everything and the way we study it, it doesn't look like it, only in some spots, or people when they talk about it in the Bible and stuff, it says it wipes out all of mankind across the face of the earth. Well, mankind was only in a specific part of the earth where it flooded.
Well, we know where people, like, we have like bones from people that goes back from way before the flood would have happened, right?
Yeah.
We have like continuous records.
That's where my
in Egypt, we have we have the remains of indigenous Americans going back 10,000 plus years. We have stories from the Aboriginal people of the indigenous Aboriginal people of Australia going back 40,000 years. So like it's just the case that we know that there were people all over the world 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
But indeed, it did wipe out everybody.
Right. So if it did wipe out everybody, then we should then we would not have continuous stories told by like I mean, the Egyptians are the example that I typically give because they definitely don't have a catastrophic flood story, and they're literally right next to what was the land of Israel. So if there was a flood, it definitely would have gotten to Egypt.
Right. Yeah, but if all the Egyptians were wiped out, how would they write about it?
Well, but they weren't all wiped out because we have continuous writing. For the entire, like, there's not like a period of time where like, oh, all of a sudden the Egyptian writing just stops, and then it takes decades before it starts up again, right? Or it takes centuries. Like that's just not there.
I see. Interesting. Yeah.
So something to think about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm gonna let you go though because I need to end the live soonish. So thank you for being here, Daniel.
One more.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I have one more thing. So there's another guy on YouTube that I would actually like to see you guys debate. So do you know Jesus and whatnot?
No, never heard of him.
No, I would look him up. Maybe reach out to him. I don't know. I like watching these sort of debates to sort of increase my knowledge about these things because a lot of this stuff I you know, I'm sort of new to like theology and everything. So a lot of this stuff would be, you know, interesting to learn about.
Jesus and
my
whatnot.
stance on, yeah, Jesus and whatnot.
I mean, like, he could always just call it on my show. I don't know if he does live streams or like what he does. So
sometimes he does live streams. He just did one, I think, like yesterday or something. He's bigger, but I don't know. I would just, that would be interesting to see you guys debate. Just as an idea.
Okay.
Because yeah, I'm new to all this stuff, and it's nice to learn about everything. So.
Sure. No. I appreciate that. I appreciate like learning in all respects. All right, Daniel. Well, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate you.
Yep.
Have a good one, man.
Goodbye.
Okay. So it is that time. Oh, let's read some super chats first. Actually, let me hydrate first. From Philo Dragon, always good to see you, bud. The history of religion, that's impossible, and later we find out it's not. Yeah, that's about right. From Jessica Transmetal Alchemist, with the 10 Australian dollars, the fine-tuning argument doesn't offer us a mechanism to show how the fine-tuner does their fine-tuning work on the universe. Where are the cosmic tuning pegs? Where are the cosmic dials and levers? Well, don't you know, Jessica? God just thinks about all of the numbers at the same time, and then he makes them that way. From Dr. Fudge with the $20, which is very generous. The specific weave pattern didn't exist in 1st century Jerusalem either, and certainly not in burial shrouds. That particular 3-1 herringbone isn't really seen prior to the invention of the horizontal treadle loom in the 13th century. I've heard about this. I don't know about it well enough that I can make that claim definitively, but I've heard about this, yeah. And from Chase with the $10, the universe was tuned for life as one known civilization exists in 2 trillion galaxies. The Earth was tuned for us as 85% of it is uninhabitable to humans, and 0.3% of water here is safe to drink. Yeah, good point. From Kevin Capizzi with the $5, there was a recent study showing a projection of Jesus onto the shroud would have looked more like an unwrapped UV map, like in CGI or a video game. Yeah, I've seen that too. But it was magically done, so it doesn't look that way. Dr. Fudge again from the $5. Wait, crap, messed up. Loom invented thousands. Loom was invented in the thousands in China, didn't come to Europe until the 13th century. Okay, yeah, that seems about right. And from Jessica again with the 10 Australian dollars, the shroud is proof of Christ. No, you secular scientists are not allowed to study it. Yes, I have a girlfriend. No, she lives in Canada. No, I don't have a photo of her. That's what it feels like. Like, look, I get that it's a holy relic, and so like I know that they don't want a whole bunch of testing, but like we have better tech. And in fact, apparently, extra material was taken in the 80s. Like basically double the material that was needed was taken in the 80s just in case it needed to be used again. So just use that material. From Cheese's Crust with the $5, there's no records from any culture, not just the Egyptians, Chinese, Mayans, Aztecs, no one. No gaps due to the flood from anyone. Well, I mean, like, there's no gaps, but some civilizations just didn't have writing until long after the flood was supposed to have happened. And from Kerry Yost with the $5, you don't want some random scientist playing dress up with the shroud, playing with dolls, going to key parties, the usual depraved side. Yes, that is what scientists do. That's very true. Absolutely, that's what we scientists do when we are doing our sciences. And I just happened to see this message from Lowine. What kind of drooling idiots are giving money to this dude? You hear that, y'all? If you are sending me a super chat, that makes you a drooling idiot, according to Lowine. So make of that what you will. I think that's exceedingly funny. Apparently all of my followers are drooling idiots. Hold on, let me just double check and make sure that we are drooling idiots. Very funny. Let me make sure that I didn't miss any cash apps, and then we will call it a day. Sorry, one sec. I need to find that window. Okay, here it is. One sec. We have, okay, we got a new follower on Twitch. That's cool. And from Shay with the $100 on Cash App. Exceedingly, far too generous, but it's exceedingly generous. Happy birthday, Shay. You know, usually when it's your birthday, you don't send money to people, you get money from people. That's usually how this goes. But thank you so much, Shay. That is enormous. I think I'm gonna buy some new headphones. because I need new headphones. These earbuds are not great. And we have $10 from Grimlock on Cash App for "Tis getting warmer, stay hydrated." It is getting warmer. It's getting very, very warm. And that's it. That's what we have on Cash App. And we got a few more super chats in the meantime. You guys are funny. From Cheese's Crust with the $2, but they did kept pictorial records. Yeah, there are pictorial records, of course. From Chase Martin with the drooling emoji. Yes, indeed. All drooling idiots here. From Jessica again with the $2 Australian, $5 Australian. I am a drooling idiot. And from Gretchen with the $5. If there was anyone left in the request box over the last hour, you owe them a big apology. Be drool. And from Pensive with the $20, I love how this always backfires. Drooling for Blitz. Hashtag drooling for Blitz. Let's go. It's always funny when people complain. And this happens on every live stream, right? Somebody's like, I can't believe these idiots are giving this guy money, are donating to this scumbag drifter. Anytime. People are always like, are you like, yup, you got it. Also, yeah, I should shout out my admin, Lilith, who runs the Discord server. She is excellent, and she makes everything, and she doesn't just run the Discord server, she's also helping me manage the Twitch account and YouTube, manage the moderators. She's great. So big shout out to Lilith, who goes by Succubussy, which is a very funny name. So for everybody who's been watching, I will see you guys on Sunday, because today is Friday. So I'll see you on Sunday for the Unapologetic Show. If you want to get updates, if you want to get announcements about when I'm going live, make sure to join the Discord that Lilith runs. It's really easy to remember. It's just discord.gg/drblitz. It's just Dr. Blitz. The DR is Doctor, and then Blitz. It's discord.gg/Dr. Blitz. And I'll see you guys on Sunday.